Hello and welcome to episode 28. And I don't need to introduce my next guest. Everybody knows. If you don't know who she is, where have you been? Keri, welcome. It's been a while trying to get you on, hasn't it? We've kind of been.
Thanks.
How are you
Yes,
doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for your patience with me and my scheduling problems. I have a problem.
How dare you have a life? You should be at my
And
beck and call whenever I
I w
want you.
I'm just so happy it worked out. I'm finally here on the Block Magazine channel, and I got my pussy hat, one of my pussy hats from the issue with the pussy reclaiming the pussy hat. This is the one that Tabitha from Murder Knits made, the black cat one. I love
Is it
it.
managing to stay on your head? Because Tabitha is an extremely loose knitter, so it's probably going to slide down your face as we
This one
talk.
is very loose compared to the other 2, yes, and I like it. On my more, bumming around the house days, like today, chasing dogs around and stuff, I put this one on.
Does it scare the dog with the eyes?
Oh, no, they're not that bright. My dog my dog's pretty smart, but he's like one of those dogs who only recognize the only thing he, can recognize on a TV show is another dog barking or a doorbell. But he can't hear but I dog sit, and I've had some dogs here before who watch TV, who are like I guess that's kinda rare,
Yeah.
but I've that blew my mind because my dog, he doesn't care unless there's a dog on the screen barking or a doorbell, that's it. I
Well,
don't think he would even know what this is.
I do a bit of dog sitting for a bulldog. He's a Victorian bulldog. Oh, and I absolutely love this. He's called Dennis. And when I go around, because I can't walk that great because I've got really bad knees, I don't take him for walks, but I play with his toys with him, for the whole time I'm
Mhm.
there. And sometimes, though, if he's busy with his own toy, I'll put YouTube on and I'll watch knitting videos. Well, the first time, I've never seen anything like it. It was the first time I'd noticed him watching the telly, but he was petrified and he was backing away. And since I've tried it a couple of times, and he does it every time. It's whatever it is with knitting videos. He's just like, obviously, it has to show the knitting on the screen. I mean, he wouldn't
Yeah,
do it if it wasn't there. But it's so weird, so weird. And I've never noticed him notice anything else.
it's
But
the knitting.
yeah, it
It's
obviously, what is it
scary.
they say? Dogs know evil things. So maybe knitting is just
Yeah.
the devil's work.
I think it's funny. I see Therese in the chat. Uh,
Oh yeah,
I
I
I also think it's funny when dogs are named human names like Dennis, like Richard. This is my dog Richard.
yeah,
What?
David.
Yeah, his name is Catherine.
Yeah, because
My
some are
dog
funnier
Catherine.
than others, aren't they?
Yeah,
Some
yeah.
are like, I don't know, Mabel or John.
Mabel, I can almost see because that's not so many humans named that anymore, although it's a great name. But yeah, John. This is my dog John.
Kevin. Oh no, Kevin's becoming quite rare now, isn't it? Neil.
Kevin.
Would you call your dog
Neil.
Neil?
Yeah.
See, Kerry still that could still be a dog's name, couldn't it, Kerry? I think. I think.
Carrie, maybe, yeah, anything with
Maybe a
E,
cat.
an
Maybe a
E
cat
sound.
rather than a dog.
Yeah,
But
it's just some of those names are just so I mean, dogs that are named things like my dog, like Tiger or Bullet or, Trigger or stuff like that.
yeah,
I'm really
non
used to that or Blackie, like non-human names, but yeah, I had my mom once named a dog Kate. I was like, "Kate? Hey, Kate."
Well, you could have called it cat for sure, and that would have been really
Yeah.
confusing, wouldn't it? Well, talking of cats, we may as well go straight into the cat hat that you're wearing. So the one that you're wearing is based on my cat Inca, which is not a human name, I don't think. Is it? No, I
I
don't
don't
know.
think
Well,
so.
maybe somewhere. I called her that because she's black like ink. Because I'm not that imaginative. But shall I show? I'm not going to go through the whole issue because I've already done like a recap of the issue, but I'm going to show the pages and the images that
Yeah.
are related to you because you could tell us more about the photographs that were taken. So this is you. You were the cover girl. Have you
Woohoo!
ever been a cover girl before?
Never. This was great, and I had so much fun taking pictures, my husband and I, with the hats. Um, And yeah, I loved it. Thank you for asking me.
Yeah, this particular picture, when I saw it, well, there was two that actually, I'm going to keep saying no. There was another one. There was three that I really, really wanted as covers, but this one seemed to be the best one. It just seemed to fit best, and there's a
Mhm.
look on your face in this one that's kind of very, I don't know, would you say whimsical? I don't know. There was just something about it that I thought, yeah, that's a cover. So we went with that one. And the other thing that I was really impressed with you about, I talked about this the other day, is that you kind of really went all for it, didn't you? You wore something different each time. So I'm assuming
Yeah.
on different days, but did you do it on different days, or did you do it all?
Some of them on different days, yes. Yeah, we mostly took those pictures over a weekend or maybe 3 or 4 days. When my husband is a musician, you can find him at Anthony Garcia Music. A little plug for him. He plays a lot in Comfort, Texas, and if there's anybody watching who is in Texas or Comfort, a lot of the knitters have told me one of their favorite yarn shops in Texas is the Tinsmith's Wife in Comfort. And so I've been there because he plays in Comfort several times a month. And it's a beautiful little Texas town. It's a lot of antique shops. It's the kind of little Texas town square you can walk around and just hit coffee shops, yarn shops, antique shops. And so I love going there. The audiences there love music. They actually come to listen to music. And so we just had a great weekend. That was at one of my favorite antique shops. They have a big outdoor area with all kinds of, if I had lots of money, I'd be buying all that stuff for my backyard. They have statues and all kinds of things to make your garden beautiful. And yeah, anyway, it was a good
As
time.
a Brit, it seems. I mean, obviously Americans will know different, but it just seems so odd that Texans have a yarn store. Because it just doesn't seem to fit. But everyone will be in there saying, "Oh, they can buy cotton, they can buy other things." I know, I get that.
Yeah, I
um,
guess it's more of, well, like a cute little Texas town like that, they're gonna have a yarn shop probably. I don't thi and they're gonna have, well, like I said, antique shops, coffee places, wine places, a lot of wine tasting rooms there. Kind of town that you would wanna hang out in for a weekend, and they have lots of Airbnbs there, bed and breakfast kinda stuff.
cool. Well, I'm hoping to come to America in 2025. Not quite sure exactly when. So I might have to put Texas on the. I don't know how I'm going to do it because I'm assuming I'll be able to visit all these places, and I know it's not going to be that easy. It's going to be flights between each place, but I really want to put Texas on my trip.
You are more than welcome to stay with us as long
Yay!
as you want, and we can show you around some of the best Texas towns.
But do I have to
Yeah.
go to church with you on a Sunday?
Yes, no, you don't have to. You have to be okay with me going while you're at my house, but you are welcome to come.
Oh no, I'll come along and I'll meet your pastor, and he and I
That's
can have a
cool.
few arguments about things that
Yeah,
we don't agree on.
he loves having those kind of arguments and discussions. He's great.
So, right, so looking at what we've got here, we've got the article "What's New Pussy Hat," which is obviously a pun on the old song "What's New Pussycat." I wanted to ask you, when you were a wokey, did you have a pussy hat?
Yes, but I had one. I didn't have the hot pink one. I had like it's a red one. I still have it. I had it just randomly before the Pussy Hat March and all that stuff.
Ah,
I got it in some shop in LA. I just liked cats and I liked the
yeah.
hat. So I just had a red one. And then by the time the hot pink Pussy Hat, like the Women's March thing happened, I was already leaving woke. I'd already left woke and started sharing my thoughts about what it actually was. I had already gone through that 6-month period of fear that I was in when I was waking up to what that ideology was, and so it was after I had already left that period of fear and started speaking out and against it. So I was not a part of the Women's March. I was criticizing it by then.
See, I had visions of you being there. I am a nasty woman, or whatever it was.
No, but I was at previous women's marches and stuff like that, and years prior before it got really big, but there weren't the pussy hats there. I think that 1 year when that happened. But I had been at previous marches like that, because I worked with a comedian. I managed comedian Margaret Cho, who was woke and in specifically in the feminist and gay parts of woke like I was, and so we went to a lot of women's she spoke at, a lot of women's kind of events like that, women's marches. So I had
And
been at some of them.
did she drop you like a hot potato when you stopped being woke, or was there never that conversation?
No, that we parted ways before I stopped being woke.
Ah,
So
right. So when you saw the Pussy Hats at the march, what was did you have any feeling about them at all? Or did you just think, oh, okay, whatever? Did it affect you in any way?
the hats themselves, I just thought I just remember thinking, I, I don't think I had words for it at the time, but another one of these sort of tribalists, I wouldn't have called it that at the time, but what I was noticing was tribalism. Another one of these signs, where people will adopt a certain style of dress or hair color or
Like
flag
blue
or
hair.
something, right, to show people
Yeah.
what their beliefs are. It's a bit like someone who's a Christian putting a cross in their profile, or
Yeah.
so that they're Christian. And so I viewed it like that. Oh, there's a whole set of beliefs that come with this pink pussy hat. That's what I thought.
Well, yeah, and you were spot on with that. Well, the thing that I found out later is that it was a really simple design, which is why so many people wore it, I think, and they got all the friends to knit them. But for the experienced knitters, there were a few more complicated hats out there, and one of them in particular was called the Kit Kat hat, and it was by Andre Sue Knits, and she's called Andy from Andre Sue, and I think her hat, it was a free pattern, but it was downloaded that whenever, I don't know, that weekend or the weekend before or whatever, for something like 16,000 times, I think it was. And she's, I don't know where she stands in terms of politics, but she's definitely more on the conservative side. And I thought she might have been quite angry about it. So I asked her, and she said, no, she was just really confused. She was
Mm,
just confused why they were using this as, one of her patterns as something that she didn't really believe in. Um, so I think she's always felt a little bit. Oh yeah, sorry, I'm going to be coughing a bit because I'm recovering from man flu. Everyone watching already knows this. I keep going on about it, but it's a man. I'm a man and I've got flu, so it's bad.
mm.
Just keep going on about it forever. Anyway, so we chatted a few times and we decided we wanted to try and sort of reclaim it a little bit. And I do know that some people watching have such a visceral sort of reaction to the Pussy Hat that they couldn't even entertain this at all because it really kind of hurt them. I think, the way it was so anti Donald Trump at the time, and the
Yeah.
whole white supremacy nonsense and everything. And the whole premise of the Pussy Hat was all based on a misunderstanding of something that Donald Trump had said anyway, because it was all based on him saying, that that there are some women out there that are desperate for fame and money, that they'll even let you grab their
Mm.
Pussy Hat. And
Yeah.
but that isn't what they turned it into. They turned it into him actually doing that. And the other thing was, he was having a private conversation, which to me is like, this is how men talk. I'm sorry, ladies, but when men are on their own and you aren't in earshot, they say things that you won't like, the same way women say things about men when they're not around that men
Yes.
don't like. It's exactly the same thing, because I've overheard both, and I know women can be just as what's the word, sexually dismissive or whatever about men as men can be. Anyway, enough of that.
Crass
So
or crass.
exactly, yeah, that's the word. So we decided we were going to sort of have a go at redesigning it. So I created these three hats on the right here, and they feed into when the people that don't like me were telling me, your cats are ugly, like an insult. So each one represents one of my cats. So the one here, the sort of ginger one, is Ollie. So he's got a human name, Ollie. And the one in the middle is Inca, the black cat, and the one on the left is North Star. He's the pretentious one, which is why it's got a pretentious.
Oh.
So, which one was your favorite out of the three?
I love all 3 of them. It's hard for me to pick a favorite. Lately, just because 'cause it's been Halloween, the month of October, I've been wearing the black cat one a lot. But I started off wearing the Ollie one on the right most,
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
then I moved on to the star, and now, yeah, the black cat. I like all of them.
This picture here with the milk, that was almost going to be the cover as well, because I love the cat that got the cream. It kind of
Uh,
And
Yeah,
the blueberry matched the blue, and you had cats on your teeth. Everything about it kind of worked. I don't know why we didn't. I think it was I don't think we had enough space to put the logo. I think that's why we didn't use that one in the end. But the best picture you sent isn't in the magazine, and we both was BS Designs, and I both wanted it as the cover, and we tried so hard to make it fit. And it's the one where you've got the toilet with the plants.
Oh,
Toilet,
yeah, that's in Comfort.
Is that not outside your home?
No, that's outside this in Comfort, Texas. One of our friends who we always stay with, across from him, there's I don't know, it's an old warehouse or something, and they sell books there for like $1. It's a great deal, and they have these toilets sitting outside with plants and cacti and stuff in them.
Oh, I thought it was great. I thought it was outside your house.
No, but I need one.
So cool.
I need one. I got a couple of old tubs out there. I got to get a toilet.
Yeah. So could you have used some of the ones you've renovated in your house? Because you've renovated it, haven't you? You could have had old toilets, I'm sure.
We could. Unfortunately, I think we took one of those to the dump, man. I should have kept it. But that milk, let me just say, that milk, that picture, I was like, oh, look, because we were taking my husband, we have this blue van that we fixed up so he can take it on the road, and I was just happened to be wearing blue that day, and we stopped at a store on the way to Comfort, and they had blueberry milk, and that was my first time having the blueberry milk, and yeah, so it was all just a coincidence.
How was it?
The blueberry milk was delicious. It's a local farm in Texas. They do milk and dairy products, cheese and stuff like that, and they have all different flavors. They have strawberry milk. Yeah.
And also, the other reason I liked it was because there was it was so blue in comparison to pink. Kind of, there was it really felt like there was a different feel to it. Then it kind of got very warm. So now we've got the Ollie hat. And so was this inside your house, or was this again somewhere else? Where did you take these pictures?
So that one's in Comfort. That's outside one of my favorite antique shops. That's their outdoor area. Gosh, I should plug some of these cool places. That's not the Comfort Antique Mall is great, but that's not the antique mall. I'll find the name of it. But for anybody who's there, it's just a cool shop, and they have good prices.
Cool. Then here we have. This was you had fun that day, didn't you, when you were doing the Inca hat?
Yes. Now that is outside my house. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
How did you manage to rope Anthony into modeling?
Well, you said you wanted him to wear one.
So he did.
Yeah. So he did. So that was him spray painting when we were working on the van. He was painting some panels, and I love a man in a white t-shirt, a plain white t-shirt. It's just, I don't know what it is. Aesthetically, it's one of the sexiest things. He knows when he wears that white t-shirt that I'm going to be like, that he doesn't wear it all the time because it's special.
Well, I suspect if you saw me in a white t-shirt being all white and pasty and English, I don't think it would have the same effect.
I think it would have a similar effect, Neil, compared to everything else you wear. Seriously, ask any lady in the chat. It's something about the white t-shirt. It's like, oh, this man can fix my truck. You just said there's something.
Wife beater in a wife beater.
No, but I really like the tee. It's like a 1950s kind of. There's something on a primal. It's not actually a thought that you're having. It's something in here in your gut is like responds to that white t-shirt. This guy knows how to fix a pipe if it freezes in the winter.
Those primal cavemen with their white t-shirts, Yes. How do you work that into it being primal? I don't know. Oh, trust me, when you see pasty white men wearing white t-shirts, it's not
doesn't work.
The same. No, I think you do need to have a bit of color in your skin. I'm not saying anything, you don't have to be black or anything, but you do have to have a bit of sun on you to be able to look good.
I don't know. I dated a pasty white guy once, and I liked him in the white tee.
Yeah, you watch next episode. I'll be in a white t-shirt. No.
Look at Therese. Keri's right about the white tee.
Oh, Here we go. Yeah.
Liz too. See, I thought women, it's not just me. Women, isn't this true? I don't know
Oh,
why.
wow.
Yeah, the capability to do things.
Ah.
Yeah, it's like a work shirt.
So not that I get many male viewers, but I do get a couple. So
Mhm.
the trick here, men, is if you don't want to be doing things, don't wear a white t-shirt, because if you
Right.
wear a tight white t-shirt, you're going to be fixing things around the house. And then, I mean, you might get your end away at the end of it, but then you might not. So is it worth it? Work it out. So now we know. So now we know if you ever see Anthony wearing his white t-shirt, you know what's coming for him.
It makes me I'm like, kind of like, ooh, fiddly dee. Like I feel so feminine when you wear that white t-shirt. Anyway, I'm done. I'm done
Ah,
talking about it. That and a
yeah.
cowboy hat. There's a couple things on a man that I just think are so attractive.
Well, you know what? I mean, we had a very brief chat, didn't we, before we came
Mhm.
live, and this kind of definitely touches on one of the subjects you brought up, which things that are sexually attractive isn't
Mhm.
necessarily nudity. You
Right.
know, sometimes it's either a state of partial undress or it's a costuming that, you know, like women um what do you call it, generally, and I'm completely white, you know, not whitewashing, what do you call it, completely wiping everyone with the same whatever. You know, when you talk about army outfits or the officer and a gentleman white naval uniform, you know, and then you've got the male sort of
Mhm.
French maid outfit, the nurse, you've got the
Right.
stereotypes that they are there, and they are, you know, some people do really like that, don't they? But
Mhm.
the thing would, not Anthony in particular, but would just a naked man on his own do it for you?
No.
It wouldn't, would it? And it's the same
No.
with naked anybody. I think if you just look at somebody naked, it doesn't. It's not sexy, is it? Really?
Not to me. I mean, your body might, especially if you're a man, your body might have a involuntary, you know, physical reaction, arousal to naked, to an image of a naked woman, but I really think that there's something about attraction that's more than just seeing all the explicit parts, you know, about attraction, not arousal. I don't know if that makes I think
Yeah,
attraction and arousal are different things. I mean,
yeah, they are
they're
definitely.
connected in some way, but it's yeah, I don't know.
But also the way men and women see both of those things are different as well. Very different.
Yes.
Because how much, I mean, I don't know, I'm just going to ask you, but how much of your attraction to somebody is not necessarily even visual?
Um, I don't know how much, but, uh, but some of it for sure, because you can be a short man, a and I am there is something about being tall that's attractive, I'll be honest, for women, but you can be a short man and overcome that easily by just being confident. There's something
Or
about
you could wear those
confidence.
shoes that that politician wears. What's he called? I don't know
That's
his
what
name.
everybody's saying to say I don't think that's true. We could talk about that. Oh, man, I can go on a rant about that, but, I think if you're just confident in it comes across, and confidence is different than ego. Confidence is, just being comfortable with who
Yes.
you are and not needing to prove anything. Ego has to prove everything. "Oh, I've gotta prove how smart I am and attractive I am," and confidence is
Yeah.
just you don't have to prove anything, and that self-assuredness is very attractive in a man, probably in a woman too. Um,
Well, I think it depends because some men prefer sort of very quiet, very docile, very timid women, don't they? But
mhm,
then I don't know, but then others like those kind of. I think with men, hate to, you know, throw this in there, but I'm sure there's a lot to do with the mother. You
mm,
know, unlike, because you often find men are attracted to women that have got very similar personalities to their mothers. So if their mother is domineering and overbearing, then they tend to go for a domineering, overbearing girlfriend stroke wife. Not, again, this is just generally, you know, obviously not everybody, but I don't know. I'm not an expert.
I think you might be right about that to some degree, yeah, and or even just, yeah, I don't know. I don't have anything else to say on that. I was just thinking, I was like, "Wait a minute, Anthony's mom and I both shop at antique shops a lot, and we both wear hats a lot."
We both like blueberry milk. Oh God. He's married his wife. His wife is his mother. Oh my god. Well, is your father like Anthony? Because that would be the kind of the
Quiet confidence, yes, but in terms of other ways, no, because my dad's more like Anthony's an artist and he's in that he's more of like a creative type, and my dad is more of he's an engineer. And so they're very different right brain, left brain types. But quiet confidence, yes.
But your dad, if he, well, I'm making a big assumption here. If he was an engineer, was he like a
Mhm.
theoretical engineer or was he like a practical engineer?
He was practical. He's a civil engineer, so
So
built lots of
he
buildings.
knew how to fix things and he knew how to do things around the
That's
house
true. He
in his
did know
white
how to do.
t-shirt.
Possibly, yes.
Oh dear.
Oh no.
Anthony needs to wear a different t-shirt from now. I can see that happening. Oh, I don't know what this. I think this relates to the high heel thing that politicians are
Okay,
allegedly wearing.
let's talk about it for a second because I have seen. Do you mind if we talk about the DeSantis bootgate? They're
Yeah, of
calling it.
course, go for it. Yeah.
So I didn't even realize what it was for a while. I just saw some things randomly would popping up on my timeline or whatever about DeSantis and boots. And so I finally saw one of the videos. Maybe there's more. Maybe I'm not seeing the right one. But the video I saw, it just it was just a regular cowboy boot. He just had regular cowboy heel. He didn't even have a cowboy heel. He had a walking heel. The cowboy heel, also called the riding heel, is taller. He was
Yeah,
wearing a
because it's worth saying again, isn't it, that you are a bit of a cowboy boot expert, aren't you?
I used to sell handmade cowboy boots. So
Yeah.
I
So
actually
you
know a
know
lot
what
more
you're
about
looking at,
boots
don't you?
than
Yeah.
hats. Yeah, but some people then I said something about it, and then some people were saying, "Well, the reason he's wearing a walking heel is because he's got a lift inside the boot." And they were telling me, "Oh, he's got a lift inside the boot. See the way he walks." So I don't know how you can tell that. I guess I don't
Well,
know how you
wasn't
can
it
tell that,
something to
but
do with the toe? Something to do with the toe of the shoe. It did look a bit odd, but it might
like
just be that
they
he's got really long toes for all I know, but there was something as he was walking, the toe kind of went very flat,
So
you
they
know?
were saying, yeah, when people started responding to me, they were like, "No, so he's wearing a lift inside the boot, and you can tell because when he walks, it looks like the toe box of the boot is empty." And I just don't know how you can tell that. I looked at that video. Maybe there's another one I should look at, but it didn't necessarily seem that way to me. So I don't know. But Cinco, I could be wrong. I don't know what's inside his boot, but the heel itself, the heel of the boot was just a walking heel, and walking heels are about like that. They're not even like this is like a cowboy heel or riding heel. That's a real tall heel. And some
Yeah.
people, not you, Cinco, whoever, but some guy replied to me and doesn't know anything about cowboy boot. I was like, how much of this is because people don't know anything about cowboys? Because he was saying these boots have heels. I was like, yeah, all cowboys boots have heels. They were made for riding horses, and you had to get in the stirrup. They if it didn't have a heel, it'd be a rain boot. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I wouldn't know this. Having never ridden a horse and never been in cowboy land, I would have no idea about this. But it makes
So
sense. It just
so
makes sense.
some people, I'm sure there's all different kinds of people who were commenting about the boots, but that particular kind who didn't know anything about, this boot has a heel. That type, I was like, what? No.
So do you think this is just another version of, Donald Trump's tiny hands? It's just a way of trying to emasculate him in some way.
Yes, I
Is that
do,
what
and
it's
I
about?
think it's like back when I was a leftist, I was a huge Howard Dean fan. He was
Oh, I
the
don't know who he
politician.
is. Ah,
So
right,
he
okay.
ran for president, and he was doing great in the polls until he did the famous Dean scream. There was a rally, a Dean rally where he hollered real loud, like, "Ah!"
Oh,
And somebody took the video and they lowered the volume in the crowd and they increased his volume and they put it out and it made him sound a little wacky, and it became a big viral meme and everyone made so much fun of him, and he plummeted in the polls after that for
oh,
something
wow.
so stupid, a scream. And so kind of think I saw this happening. It seems like this might be happening with Bootgate, where people are like, ah, the because again, we're very instinctual and primal animals, and so if that type of mockery works, like with the little hands, I guess it didn't work on Trump, but with the idea that DeSantis might be wearing lifts inside his boot, could
Well,
that work?
I
Yeah, I
mean,
guess.
if anyone's watching in the comments who has an opinion on DeSantis and whether he wears them or not, just let us know if it
Weigh
would
in.
alter your opinion.
Yeah.
Not necessarily whether you think it's real or not, but whether it would alter your opinion if anybody that you were thinking of voting for would wear that. Because if you think of people like Putin, I mean, they're always talking about how short he is, aren't they? But he kind of owns it. I think when he's walking, he kind of has that arrogant
He's
confidence
just
to it.
comfortable, yes.
Yeah.
So I
And
would say, oh, go ahead.
no, sorry, go on. Oh,
Well,
go on.
if DeSantis is wearing lifts, that's stupid. He should stop and just own being short and just be confident. Who cares? And if he's not wearing lifts and it's all a big manufactured BS controversy, if I were on his team, I would say, uh, look, if you're wearing lifts, stop. And then I would say that, but I would also say, and if you're not wearing lifts, we're gonna go get you the biggest cowboy riding heel we can on a flashy boot. Like I'm talking about, we're going to Rocket Busters, and you're gonna
Lady
have
Gaga boots, those ones.
yeah, yes, you're gonna have a boot so beautiful and such a work of art. Just own it and take it up a notch. Don't apologize for it. Don't stop wearing boot. That's what I'd be.
Yeah.
Somebody on his team needs to go get him a pair of Rocket Busters. That's how you fight that. And then just come out there like, boom, put your boots up on a table while you're talking. Like these are my boots. Like, own it.
But here's the funny thing, isn't it? Is for a long time. Do you remember seeing all the men wearing high heels dancing and I don't know if you've seen it, where it seems to be the thing now that these male dancers were doing it in high heels. And
No,
it's almost like the woke loved it. They loved the fact that these men were wearing high heels. Oh, here we go. What's this? Trey says I read someone who said he lives in Florida. Sorry, I'm reading this wrong, aren't I? Someone who lives in Florida says that he's never worn boots until now.
that's the first thing. That's the first time I'm hearing that because some of the articles I was reading trying to understand Bootgate. They mentioned he always wears cowboy boots, but maybe that started with the presidential campaign. I don't know.
Isn't it sad though that is kind of, rather than talking about his policies,
Right.
that is an overshadow, and we're all doing it. We're talking about it now.
We're talking about it now.
I don't know one of his policies, but then again, I've got an excuse. I'm British. I don't need to really know, do I? But is he a conservative? Is he Republican?
Yeah. So here's the thing about DeSantis. I think, he's the governor of Florida. He's handled the woke incursion into that state magnificently. He's also handled COVID better than almost any other governor. And he, in terms of not allowing some of these restrictions that other governors allowed and not infringing on the individual rights, he's also done a lot to root woke ideology, social justice ideology out of public schools. And he's been very vocal about it. He's done a great job. And I don't really understand. I guess this is just what happens in campaigns now, but he and Trump appeared to be publicly allies for a long time until they both decided to run for president. And now it's just this very acrimonious thing between people who are voting for one or the other. And I don't get it. Like,
But do you not
I'm,
remember it was very similar with Hillary and Obama when the pair of
yes,
them ran against each other? That got quite nasty, and then they were best friends after, on camera anyway. So it might
yes.
change, when
It,
whoever wins it all in the end.
but
It
in the
might.
meantime, their followers, the ones who are very tribal about it. I've seen DeSantis people and I've seen Trump people, both of them say things online. People with big followings say things like, I'll never vote for the other one now. Like if that one wins the primary, I'm not voting for him now. I'm like, what? I don't
That's a
care.
bit crazy, because that's a bit
I'll,
like saying so that means they will vote for presumably Biden again then,
I don't
or no?
know, or
What was
not
that?
vote, or I have no idea. But I think it's unfortunate that people are letting their emotions and the rivalry, I think, um, it's be more important than their reason. I think reason would reason tells me I'm going to vote for whoever is running against Biden, who has the best chance. It doesn't matter who I voted for in the primary. I'm probably gonna vote for DeSantis in the primary.
And isn't that kind of what the
But
left did? It was almost like, I will vote for anybody as long as it isn't Donald Trump, wasn't it? That was kind
I
of
guess
their so
I'm at that point
kind
now.
of
Yes.
flipped, hasn't it?
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
at that point now because I think having Biden back in office is just
Well, he
4 more
can't.
years.
There's no way he can't mentally do it, can he? Because I mean, didn't I sure I might have the context of this wrong. So if if I'm wrong, please say. But there was a video that I saw where someone was interviewing Kamala. God, what a waste of space she is. And about the possibility of Biden dropping out and not being able to, continue being the president. And she kind of got very angry with the guy, but you could almost see this kind of duping delight,
Mm.
in her face, where she obviously was thinking what that would mean. Because presumably, I don't know your system as well, but
Yes.
she would then become the president or acting
Yes.
president until, but she wasn't going to get into that because it was all hypotheticals or whatever it was she says.
But she loved it.
Oh yeah, you could see behind, you could see it. Their eyes, lit up, and there was a bit of a tiny little smile,
Ugh.
But he can't run. I don't think there's no way he's going to run. And if he does, and if he won, I can't see him being president for very long. He can't string a sentence together, and that isn't even being horrible about him. It's just a fact, isn't it?
Yeah, but you know what's crazy, Neil? I don't think it matters anymore. I think the world may have become so crazy, it doesn't matter how incompetent, like, how non-functional he is. He's just a puppet. Whoever's in that office is oftentimes just a puppet, I think. It doesn't matter if the puppet is, haywire or not
Well,
functioning properly.
do you think that's why they hated Trump so much? Because he probably wanted to actually do stuff rather than just be
Yes.
sat there waving his hand at, kissing kids and sniffing their hair or whatever it is Biden does.
Yes. I think they tried to own him. I think there is definitely, it's the left where I came from that coined the phrase deep state, and it's the progressive
Ah,
left that we are the ones who used to talk about the deep state. But suddenly, because Trump was talking about the deep state, then all of a sudden it flipped, like a lot of things do, where then you see the left saying, "Oh, the deep state, meh." Well, it's like, dude, that's what we were
yeah.
criticizing. We were calling out the military-industrial complex, and we were calling out, all of these unelected government officials in these three-letter agencies for the longest time. That's what we were calling out, the CIA, the FBI, stuff like that. But as soon
Then this seems to be
and
a common thing, doesn't it? Where, sorry, I interrupted you there,
No,
but
go ahead.
where I mean, I can't find any record of this happening officially, and I have looked, but where the left say that the Republicans and the Democrats switched. They switched parties,
Oh, yeah.
and it's like, well, when did that happen? Why isn't that something that I can look up in a history book and see the date that happened? When everybody in the house decided, oh yeah, okay, and then they crossed the aisle.
Do you know what they mean by that, though? Because
Well, I'm assuming it's just that they switched policies somehow, but did
they
they? Is that a real thing?
so what they mean by it, though, is very, if you boil it down to what they're trying to say, is if you point out that Democrats were the ones who were fighting for segregation, that a lot of Democrats were the ones who were in the KKK, that they were openly very racist, okay?
Yep.
Because they're woke and they claim to be against racism and all that stuff, and they view themselves as the good guys and on the right side of history. It's a very childlike way of looking at, everything's black and white, and so they have to reconcile the history of the Democrats by saying, well, the Democrats used to be the bad guys and the Republicans were the good guys, but then they switched. And now the Democrats are the good guys and the Republicans are the bad guys. That's literally, I think, what they mean. They mean they're boiling it down to some good guy, bad guy thing. Like it, it's a childlike way of looking at things.
But then isn't that what? Well, I don't even want to just say the left because I kind of can concede now that it does happen on the right as well. But politics does become very childlike, doesn't it?
Yes.
It's,
Look at
it's
we're talking about boots.
Little hands, little hands.
Little hands. But it works though, because we're so oh gosh, what's the book I read about? So you're a Brit, so I'll tell you, you probably didn't hear this either or know about this, but when John Kerry was running against W,
Yeah.
and the establishment at that time, now I admit my view might be skewed because I was in the woke left then. But I don't think it was skewed. I do think the establishment at that time, the establishment, the deep state, what have you, they don't care about I really don't think they care about parties. They use both parties. At that time, the establishment was backing W, and the press, Newsweek, I think it was, did a
They were
cover.
both Republicans, weren't they, though? Is that
No,
right?
John Kerry was the Democrat.
Oh,
Okay.
was he? I thought he was a Republican.
Yes.
Ah, sorry.
No, he was the Democrat. And so they ran a cover. There was this big meme going around about how John Kerry once, the Democrat, in a speech said something about arugula. And they're like, oh, who eats arugula? He's so out of touch with the common man. He's an arugula. And so, this New England, the arugula, and then Newsweek ran a cover. You can look this up, where it had a picture of a mug of beer and a picture of arugula, also called rocket. It's just a kind of greens. And it said, beer versus arugula. And the basically they're saying the presidential race is going to boil down to, would you rather hang out with the guy who wants you could have a beer with, like W, or the guy who eats arugula? And they were like, but they were right. I think that's how people, you can get one of these memes takes hold, like little hands.
You just made just before. I've just remembered one. It was McCain I'm thinking of that was Republican. I was thinking you were talking about McCain because he went up against.
McCain is a Republican, or
yeah,
was,
that's what I thought you meant. Yeah, sorry. But then you said about the beer. Who wants this and the beer? Is that why? Warren had that silly video where she's drinking a bottle of beer and asked her husband whether he wants a bit, and you could tell she'd never held a bottle of beer like that before in her life.
It was so awkward.
Well, this is why I think Michelle Obama is a knitter, in inverted commas, because something I found out recently, I'm not going to say exactly what it is yet.
Wait, hold on one second.
Yeah.
Before you move on, I have to correct the record, and then I'm sorry for butting in. It was Obama. I thought it was Kerry. It was Obama. Here's the cover. I just sent it to you in the private chat. It was Newsweek, and it was arugula versus beer, and it said, and then it said Obama's Bubba Gap.
Okay, let me figure out how to do this now. Sorry, I'm not as tech savvy as you are. I've got it. Yeah, I can see it. So if I stop,
so I was remembering it wrong, but the basics are there. The beer versus arugula, and actually, Newsweek in this article, they were coming to Obama's defense.
Is this it? Is it on?
Yes. Yeah. You see that?
Right.
Isn't that funny?
I've never even heard of that before.
Okay, I'm sorry I interrupted you. You were moving on to Michelle Obama. Okay.
Yeah, well, there's a little bit of info that I've had that I'm going to be revealing in the magazine, but I can't actually say just at the moment what it is. But what I'm going to say is that there's a very prominent. My screen's got a bit weird now. Here we go. There's a very prominent knitter who actually has political connections, and somebody, without giving too much away, somebody who she's related to worked for Hillary, Bill Clinton, and Obama, and Kumo, I think his name is. And I've got a feeling that this person, who is a knitter, whispered, this is just what I think, I don't have the proof that they did this bit of it, but I think they had a word with Michelle and said, if you pretend you're a knitter, all the knitters will love you. Because she has never, even to this day, she has never actually shown any
her work.
Well, she's shown work. She's shown herself sat there with knitting needles in her hand in a kind of weird way, but she's never actually been filmed, knitting, proving. Yeah, Tabitha. Allegedly, Tabitha. Allegedly.
Isn't that funny?
But I'd love to know if it's true. I'm kind of erring on the side that it is, but I can't say for sure it is because obviously I wasn't there and I don't know. But because I'll never forget. I think we've talked about this before years ago, when Bill and Hillary were when he was in the White House, and Hillary was oh, what did she say? She when he was having his affairs, and I think she said something
Mm.
like, I'm not going to stay at home like the little wife, and blah blah blah. And then apparently half of America was criticizing her for being anti-housewife. So then the
Mm.
next time she was seen on TV, she was in the kitchen baking something, and it was like, so ridiculously. I don't know what the word is because as I was watching it all them years ago, thinking, are Americans that stupid that they're going to fall for that?
Yes, yes, it works. It works. I was watching Josh Slocum's Disaffected podcast the other night, and he had the clip of Kamala Harris doing her announcement this week about how she and President Biden are going to fight the increase in Islamophobia. And he pointed out in the video, she's talking to the camera. Where's the camera? She's talking like looking at the camera. Is
Oh,
that right? Okay.
yeah.
And she's like addressing America. And then it cuts to a frame from over here. So you see her from the side addressing America. And it cuts. And it's just, why do you need all these cuts? It's like a Hollywood production. It used to be, he had a great point. It used to be they just talk to America. There's a camera in front of them. And now it's like the camera's moving. There's like a drone coming, It's like,
Different
just
lights
to,
everywhere.
yeah, just to massage like perception. A lot of work goes into that, and I don't know, it's
Well,
fascinating.
there's something I saw yesterday where I thought, I think I know what's going on here. Have you seen? There's a video going around where they've superimposed Obama's face onto a girl's body with kind of
No.
this big curly hair. I won't even be able to find it now because I saw it on Instagram, but it was very real looking. His face fitted perfectly, and it was his voice saying those words that weren't his words. And I thought, yeah, they now are in a position because of the way AI is and because of the technology now, that when videos are going to come out eventually where they're seen doing really awful things, they're going to be able to say with plausible deniability, oh, that's AI. Somebody's
Yes.
got that written into, and we're never going to be able to believe what we see. Do you remember when you did that video where it was AI and all the fingers?
Yeah.
This talk mentions another thing we were going to talk about. There was a picture I saw the other day where it was a Palestinian child who was all cut and blooded, holding his hand up with six fingers.
I saw that too.
To be fair, though, you can't even trust that it wasn't originally doctored to look like he had six fingers, or whether it was.
You can't trust anything.
You just can't tell, can you? Unless you're
And
producing it yourself, you'll never know.
think back to Jeffrey Epstein and some of the people that we know about who were in his circle, and Prince Andrew, when the allegations came out about him, and this was before AI really had taken hold. But the pictures of him with some of the accusers, he was just boldly and blatantly saying that picture's not real. They can say whatever they want. That's why I think it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter almost if Biden is, weekend at Bernie's all the time in the White House. It doesn't. They can just say whatever they want, and everything's this machine, this left-right machine, this tribalist thing, this it's working so well. People on the left, I don't think they even care if Biden is functionally there or not. They don't care.
You don't care because they actually know as well as we do that he isn't doing the job, But I just want to say there's a lady out there called Emma in the Moment, and she did a bit of I don't want to say a hit piece, but she did a video where she mentioned about the knitting wars, and she brought Deplorable Knitter into it and Anne Pinkover, and she was a little bit snidey about it. There's things that we're going to talk about it, but she's doing one on me apparently, so she's doing all the research now. So I'm just going to say to all the knitters, so when she shows that video of my OnlyFans where I'm naked, and when she shows the video where I'm marching in a Nazi rally, just know it's AI. It's not me.
You don't have an OnlyFans?
Oh, can you imagine? Jesus. I think I'd be paying them. I don't think I'd make any money on it.
Yeah, that's my joke was like, I'm gonna do an OnlyFans called Homely Fans, and the more money you pay me, the more clothes I put on.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I'll do that one. Yeah, I would definitely have to do that. Oh, a couple of people have mentioned about Michelle. Therese says there's a theory that they're going to put Michelle in to run. I've heard that. Liz has heard that as well.
Huh.
Kat has put, if Michelle runs, she will win. Ooh. Do you think she would?
Okay, don't mean to be a black pill or whatever they call it here, but I think I think whoever runs is gonna win, even Biden, because I don't trust the system anymore. I don't trust the voting.
Yeah.
On a national level, I don't. I trust, to a greater degree anyway, my local elections, but the integrity of the national elections, I don't. I am now at the point where I can't say that I trust any presidential election since Kennedy.
Wow. Right.
So I don't.
Even the Reagan landslide that year.
I don't think I can trust any, because, and again, like I said, I don't think the deep state really cares about which party. If you think about it, here, let's get conspiracy theory. um, if it is beneficial for elites to have, you know, the masses destabilized and fighting with one another constantly, then it makes sense that a big shakeup, just switching the other way, would destabilize things. And think about what happened when Trump won. It was unexpected to very many people. It caused a lot of, I mean, the left just went ape shit. That's what caused me to wake up, was how the left reacted out in the streets, destroying businesses, rioting, stuff we had never seen over the results of a presidential election before. And so in the end, even though I think Trump did a lot of good, I think it benefited the deep state, the agencies, a lot to have him in there, and because they've been very successful since he's been in there. I mean, look at what's happened to our country, and you know, things are falling apart. And if you, this is me being full on conspiracy theorist, if they have the ability to rig elections in other countries, which we know they do, our government, why wouldn't they do it here?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and you know, I don't trust them at all. I don't trust how big our government is. I don't trust the three-letter agencies. I don't trust that I don't believe that their goals are to do what's best for the American public. Or I think they are the kind of people who think they're smarter. The kind of people who go to the World Economic Forum stuff, that, they think they're smarter than the masses, and that they are somehow like gods who deserve to, control the direction of the country. And if that means shaking up things, making life unlivable to some degree for the American public, they don't care. I mean, Trump said he was going to release a lot of the Kennedy files, which he did not release a lot of them, but he did release a few. One of the ones he released, and you can read mainstream news articles about this, they didn't cover it in great detail, but they did. There were a few pieces in the mainstream news. One of the documents he released showed that the CIA had been planning to bomb a city in Florida and blame it on Castro. And they ultimately decided not to, but not because they thought it was wrong. There was some other strategic reason why they didn't, but they were willing to blow up an American city and blame it on Castro. So and that came out in the news. And like I said, some mainstream news outlets covered it, and that wasn't huge. It should have been huge. Like, look at what our government's willing to do to us. Do you think they've changed? Do you think Operation Mockingbird ever ended? No. Things like that we're like, oh, well, we know they used to plant people in the media to spread propaganda to their own people, but they don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
Why?
Because that means I've fallen for it, doesn't it? That's why they don't want to admit it. Because one of the things, I've got a question for you, just a simple one, but
Yeah.
just when all the lockdowns were happening, I kind of completely turned my back on TV. I didn't watch any news because
Yeah.
I just didn't want to hear it anymore. And I watched a lot of Netflix and I watched a lot of YouTube, but I definitely felt a difference that I was suddenly seeing more truth, or what I felt was more true. And I wonder how many of us that feel this way and feel like there's no point voting anymore because it's all kind of fixed in a way, how many of us don't watch TV? Because I suspect that it's
A
quite,
lot of us.
yeah, because I don't think we're falling for the nonsense that we're being fed. Because you only have to look at what, say on a Saturday, look at what's on TV on a Saturday evening, and you just think, what the hell is this? It's like, it's the most inane, bizarre stuff that I've ever seen, and it seems to be getting crazy now. Sorry, go on.
So you make me think of, um, my husband and I were in Europe for, uh, 5 weeks this fall, and one of the new friends that I made in the Netherlands. Okay, so I met this amazing community of leftists, but not woke leftists, but left, like progressive left,
Oh,
people on the left in the artist community. They're musicians, artists, yoga instructors who are all based, completely based. And a lot of them woke up during the COVID policy stuff. And one of them in particular told me, she was like, I started to, it sounded very similar to my waking up process where she's like, I started to think, am I crazy? Is it just me? They're trying to force me to take this thing and force me to wear the mask. And she talked to a therapist about it. She was so concerned what's happening with me. And she finally had this, battle within herself where she gained control of herself and was like, I'm going to say what I believe to be true. I'm not going to worry about what other people say. And I'm going to stop listening to the news. She and also because in the Netherlands right now, the news, the propaganda there against the farmers is out of control.
yes.
And she
And
was
not many
telling
people
me,
know about this. It's
yes,
kept quite quiet.
very quiet, and they're calling all of these progressive left-wing people who are based, though, they're calling them extreme far right, people like her and people who are running. She said, "It's crazy. Let me tell you about this politician." I don't remember his name. She's like, "He's with the left. He's always been with the left. They're calling him a crazy right-winger now." And I was like, "Yeah, that happens in America too. It's really bizarre, right?" They're calling the farmers extreme right-wing farmers. Now, whenever in our little country town we see a guy on a tractor, Anthony's like, "Look at that extreme right-wing farmer over there." Like, it's like
Yeah, with these Nazi cows. A goose stepping behind.
right?
Oh,
So, but they turned off the news. She turned off the news, and she said it's been a godsend
yeah.
to turn
Well,
it
when
off.
I was watching the stuff in lockdowns, it was the stuff that was getting me down was that it was just death after death after death after death. And it was like, 93-year-old woman dies of the you know what. And it's like, she was 93. I'm sorry. I'm sure it was really upsetting for the
Mhm.
family, but she was 93. Whereas now we've got excess deaths amongst the younger people that is beyond anything we've ever known. Never,
Yeah.
won't even talk about it. And we've
No.
got an MP called Andrew Bridgen who's been trying to talk about it in Parliament. When he stands up, Parliament leaves. He's talking to an empty room. Nobody will listen, but at least it's getting recorded onto the books, if you like. But it's like when they're talking about their pay rise, it's full. You can't get in. It's standing room only. But they don't care about real things. Oh, I just want to say before I forget, because we've been talking for nearly an hour. Are you okay for time? By the way, are you all right? What time
Yes.
have you got? Are you all right for
I'm
how?
good. I'm having fun. This is one of the best free-flowing conversations I've had in a while.
Oh,
I feel
cool.
very comfortable with you. Murder Knits is in the chat, and I wanted to say thank you so much for this hat. I love it, Tabitha. I'm with you. I don't watch the news except to know what they're saying. I watch clips here and there, but I do still vote. I understand why you're not voting, but I still vote kind of because I guess it's just as an FU to them, like just because I know or I think I know, I believe that you're rigging things if the way you want them to go, you're still not gonna stop me from trying to vote. Like, I feel like they would have win something over me if I just didn't
You've
go.
still got
I
hope.
don't know.
While there's still hope, you can still try.
Yeah, like, what if I'm wrong? So, I don't know.
Mhm. Well, what we're going to do now, we're still going to chat, and we will be able to chat about anything. But
Okay.
what I'm going to do is teach Keri how to wind a ball of yarn, because she I think, was it Chicken Lady? It's Chicken Lady, isn't it? Chicken Lady Fiber Art sent her some yarn in her own colorway called Deprogrammed,
Deprogrammed. It's
which I
blues.
got as well. Because I love these blues, and although for me it might not show up very well against the blue and the blue,
It
it's
does.
all,
It's
but
blue, blue,
hopefully,
blue.
you'll be able to see what I'm going to do. But I know you want to start knitting with it, don't you? So
Yes, instead of my crappy yarn that I bring to all the politically incorrect knitter things, let's use the good yarn.
and the thing is, most of us knitters will have what's called a Swift, which helps us ball these up. And if you don't have one, it's you don't have to not knit with it just because you don't know what to do. So what I'm going to do is show her how to wind this up. So the first thing you would do, Keri, is just take the label off. Ta-da! Now
Not too hard.
yeah, keep that label safe. This is really important because there's a lot of information. Well, there's not a lot of information, but there's important information on the label. It tells
Okay.
you the weight of the yarn, how much you've got in terms of yardage. It might even tell you how to wash that garment when it's been made, and so you need to keep it until you've remembered exactly. But also, if you run out of the yarn, if you're making something, you need to know where you got it from and how to get more. So keep that safe.
Okay.
Now, this is where everything could go wrong, but I just let it all drop and then open it out.
Wait, mine's all. How do I let it drop?
So let it drop. So put your hand into the loop at the top.
Hold on. Let me
If
take
you
these
unravel
rings.
it, sorry, because it's raveled together, isn't it?
I'm gonna take my rings off. This seems.
This is going to be harder than I thought, people.
Okay.
Right. So now you should be able to pull one end out of the other end because it's kind of tight. There
Ah!
we go. Be careful now. This is the most dangerous part of this, where
Okay.
it could all go wrong. Now, what you have to do is kind of try and find where there's a loop so that you can see how it's been. Here we go. I've got a bit of a tricky bit here.
Got it.
And then once you've got the loop, you should be able to open it out. Yay! Brilliant. Right. Now, I want you to have a quick look around it. So pass it between your fingers and go around, and you'll see that it's tied at different points. Can you see there are ties on there? Now,
Yes.
some of these ties are different to others, and depending on where you get the yarn from will depend on how many there are, how many ties there are. So what I do, I don't worry. There's one tie in particular that's probably the most important, so there's two ends in a skein of yarn. Obviously, you've got the beginning and the end of the end, I should say. And so when you see these little knots where they're tied, sometimes those ends of the yarn itself are tied into that, and sometimes they're not. But all you have to do is get your scissors and just cut the knot off the end. So I don't know whether you can see that. I just cut the knot off.
Okay. Done.
And then just gently pull that bit of yarn out. And if it comes away and it's just a little bit of its own yarn, great. And then just put that to one side. You don't need that anymore. Yeah. Did that work?
No, it's not just one little bit.
Ah, right. I knew this would happen. I knew you'd go for the input. Right. So keep that bit safe. Don't just leave it as it is, and work around the yarn until you get to the next tie, and do the same thing again with the next tie.
Okay. See.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's this? Neil attempts to teach alt-right lady how to knit.
When I when I used to knit, I only did scarves, and this is a while ago, years ago. But I never had to do this. I think I did it wrong because I just knit from a ball. I was doing it wrong.
Well, no, you weren't doing it wrong. It's just that it had already been done for you, basically. If it's already in a ball. Right. So now, have you taken them all off now?
Oh, wait, I got one. Hold on.
There's usually two or three, maybe four at a push, but there usually isn't more than that.
Okay. Yes, that one. Hold on.
Deline, I think that is, or Delina says, I put my arms through it before I cut so I can't accidentally drop it. Yeah, whatever you do now, Keri, do not drop this yarn.
Okay.
You'll
I've
never
got
drop
it.
it again, put it that way. Right, so are all of them unraveled? Right, so I've just
Yes.
got to do this last one. Now, you should have an end. So do you know where the end is?
Yes.
So
I've got 2 ends.
brilliant. So you only need one of the ends,
Hold on.
and then you put this over your neck. Are the dogs okay?
I think it's probably the FedEx guy. I apologize.
Oh, it's all right. Don't worry. So choose one of the ends. It doesn't really matter which one you choose. And then what I do is I do the devil horn sign like this, and then I get one end and I wrap it round in like a figure of 8, not too tightly, just quite loose. I just start doing this, so it kind of looks. All the knitters watching now, like, oh, I could have watched paint dry. Don't worry, everyone. We'll be able to start chatting again in a minute once we get going. Now, you don't do it all the way. You only do it for so long. So let me see what you've got at the moment. So when you've got about that much, is that about the same? This feels so naughty. Maybe we should talk. We were going to talk about porn. So maybe is this like yarn porn? Right. So have you got that now? And then once you've got that, take it off your fingers. And then I just kind of twist it a little bit and I just put it together like that. I just hold it like in a bit of a mess together. I'm sure there's a better way of describing that. Oh, can you hear us or not?
Oh, I was muted because of the dog. I'm good.
Right. Okay.
I think I'm done.
Oops. What's that? Yarn only fans. Right. And then once you've got that little mess, all I do then is I just start to wrap it around, but wrap it a bit around your finger as well, because you don't want to wrap it too tight. And you just keep turning it with your left hand as you wrap it.
And
And
you
at
pull your
first,
finger
it looks a bit
out.
of a mess. Yeah, take your fingers out. So now you should have like that, something that looks a bit like that.
So we're making it into the kind of ball that I would knit from.
Yeah, you're making a literal ball.
Duh.
But one of the things that you have to be careful of is that you don't make the ball too tight, because you don't want to be stretching the yarn, because the yarn's quite elastic, and if you stretch it too much at this stage, it can be pulled out of shape a little bit. So what people tend to do, or what they say to do, is as you're wrapping it around, wrap it around a finger or a couple of fingers and then pull your finger out, and it kind of keeps it looser.
Okay.
Now I've already got a bit messed up here. As you're going around, sometimes the yarn doesn't want to come round from your neck, but if you play around with it, it will work. Let's see what you've got so far. You're hiding it, so we get it's probably a big tangled. Hey, yeah, that's cool.
Is it good?
Yeah, you don't have to have that piece hanging down. This separate piece. You can tie that in, because we're not doing what's called a center pull. So I'm not. That's a bit advanced, I think, for this time. Yeah, Delane. Is it Delene? Delane. I don't know how you say your name. Sorry about that. She says I wrap it round a round tube. Yeah. For a center pull ball, and I hold it in my but we're not doing a center pull today. We'll do that maybe next time.
You are making something so easy into a nightmare.
Tabitha says, imagine Neil reading that out loud. Oh, I'm not sure which bit. Which bit? What was said? What do I need to read out loud?
I like the way you say my, because before we started, you said, I have to turn me camera on. Me camera, me.
Yeah.
I love it.
I don't always say me, but I think it's when I'm not thinking about what I'm saying. So if I'm talking about family, I'll say, oh, me mum. I'm going to me mum's. But then other times I will say my properly. It's just...
It depends.
Yeah. So are you doing okay with that at the moment?
Yes.
Because that's it now, basically. We just keep going until
we're good.
And it does get tangled up a bit, but as long as you've got it round your neck, you should be able to untangle it as you're going. This. I don't. Where did that come from, Tabitha? What are you turning this channel into? Right. So what else are we going to talk about today then? So you wanted to mention a little bit about porn, didn't you?
Well, you were asking me that's what I've been thinking about the past few days and writing about. I did my show on Monday about that. Oh, that was yesterday. And yeah, it was just in my mind, I guess because people are talking about it because here in the US, there's a new Speaker of the House, and there's a video the left pulled up from last year where he was talking about how his family uses Covenant Eyes, which is software that keeps porn out of your house by monitoring all of your internet use and sending a weekly report to whoever you've designated to be your accountability partner. So it'll flag anything that the AI thinks might be objectionable. And so he was saying he and his son Neil, who's 17, they are each other's accountability partners. So, he gets Neil's report and Neil gets his, and he's happy to say his son is, grade A, like nothing objectionable.
Okay.
And so the left took this and ran.
Weird, isn't it? It's kind of a
So
bit.
Why do you think it's weird? Because I'm curious.
Is there the question I would have for that is it a no porn at all rule in the house, or is it some kind of acceptable porn or acceptable level of porn? And if they're
No
checking
porn.
each other, does it? Right, okay, right.
No porn, because so the people who use Covenant Eyes are usually, not always, but primarily Christians, evangelical Christians, people who believe that porn is bad for you and that you shouldn't be watching it. And so sometimes it was in the news previous because that Josh Duggar, do you know who he is?
I've heard about him. Was he one of the? Was he very religious, and did he have a
Yes.
family? And he did something dodgy. Did he?
He
Kill
did a
some?
lot of dodgy things. No, he didn't kill anyone, but he was first caught up in so he's in the family, the Duggar family, which is a huge quiverful family, and they had a very popular TV show for years, and he was the oldest son. And then news broke that he had sexually molested some of his sisters, and it had been covered up. And then news broke that he was on the infidelity app, cheating on his wife, on Ashley Madison.
Right, yeah,
And
I remember that bit now.
then news broke that, so after that, Covenant News was mentioned in the news because his family had started using, his wife had started using Covenant News, Covenant Eyes. So and with any kind of addiction, the idea of accountability partner is not new. It's like, so anyway, she would get a report if there's anything objectionable on his computer. But turns out he partitioned his hard drive and started using the dark web so he could go look for the worst kind of porn that exists. I won't name it here because I don't want YouTube to censor you.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Illegal. Yeah. And he is in jail now for that disgusting stuff. But so that was it. That was the first time I heard about Covenant News, or Covenant Eyes. Sorry, Covenant Eyes. And so now this guy's talking about how he uses it to make sure, that he doesn't view porn. And they're trying to make something dirty out of it. Like, oh, he and his son watch each other's porn. I was like, no, I don't think you get it. He and his son don't watch porn.
That's how I kind of took it when you first said it. Like they were kind of checking what each other had watched almost, like, and then the father was deciding whether that was okay to watch. That's how I interpreted it.
It's more just like, if my accountability partner knows, if somebody knows what I'm viewing, maybe I won't be tempted to view anything. And if it's working, then you're not even seeing any porn because they're not watching porn.
So I suppose the father has that to sort of say, look, it isn't just you. You will do, you'll be checking me as well. So I kind of get that now you've explained it. It does make sense.
Yeah.
Rather than the father being, oh, I'm going to make sure you don't watch porn, but then nobody checking whether he's watching porn himself, like a hypocrite kind of thing.
Yeah. He's basically like, we're not having porn in our house. I wonder if his wife has an accountability partner.
Yeah, she's doing an OnlyFans in the back room and they don't know.
But so because that became news, I was thinking about that because it was just so many people on the left. Rolling Stone did this hit piece on him, and all these people on the left are saying he needs to be investigated, and they're trying to make something dirty out of it. And it's like, it's the opposite. He's trying to keep porn out of his house. You may not agree with the software, but that's the intent behind the software, is like to keep porn out of the house, to help people resist the temptation to look at it.
Well, as someone of slightly older generation to you, when I was a kid, there was no internet when I was a kid. You know, you couldn't get any porn anyway, even if you wanted it. The only way to view porn was magazines. And when we were young, the only way, you know, I mean, every male of my age has got this story where, you know, out with your friends, you find an old porn magazine in the mud, you know what I mean? And everyone's so excited about it with you and your couple of friends. It's like, oh my God, there's a porn. And it's like, oh, when you think about it, it's like, what's happened with that magazine? You know, what has somebody done?
Yeah.
But that was like it. That was, and the occasional, you know, film that you might see, and then when you're older and you're able to get videos, but then it becomes like I remember I worked in an engineering place once, and it was all men apart from one woman, and they used to have like a porn club, but it was video. So we're talking before the internet, and there was like these old videotapes, VHS. They were handed to people, you know, in like envelopes, and it was all very like they were passing.
Weird.
Yeah, and I remember sort of saying, "What's that?" You know, because I was one of the younger ones at the time. And it was like, "Oh, you don't need to know." But then somebody was taking porn into the men's toilets at work, and it was found they'd been putting it behind a panel. So they were going into the toilet during the breaks, presumably, to then look at this porn and do whatever you do with it. And it was quite. As far as I know, I never saw it, but it was quite extreme, apparently. I'm saying that. Apparently, it wasn't me, honestly. But yeah, so porn it's always been around, but just the access to it now is what I think
is
is
different. Yeah, so I was looking up stats and stuff about it, with the accessibility of it being online and the ability to find very quickly more and more extreme and disturbing kinds of porn. That I was looking at studies about increased incidence of erectile dysfunction in younger men, you know, which, because it typically affects older men, but the possibility that, which studies seem to show it could be impacting that, the possibility that that's one of the reasons why you're seeing increased ED in young men, because it is so different how you can get it now and what you can get.
One thing I wonder about it, with the difference in age, again, this is just that, is that sort of my age group, you know, it was quite possible that your first sexual encounter was the first time you'd ever seen any bits of another human. You know what I mean? It was of the opposite sex, for example. So you were going to be, you know, sexually aroused by that. Whereas now, if you've seen every kind of naked body at your disposal, and you then know exactly what it is that floats your boat specifically, as in, you know, they need to have a backside like Kim Kardashian, but they need to have breasts like X person, and they need to have blonde hair but black skin, and, you know, nipples this, and you know what I mean? If they've then got an idea in the head of the only type that is appropriate, could that be part of the erectile dysfunction thing, that they just don't find ordinary people that don't look like that attractive anymore?
I mean, you're a man, so you'd know better than me, but I don't think that's it with men. I suspect it's because they also show that men who develop a porn addiction experience ED with porn. They have to seek out more extreme kinds of porn to be able to perform. And so it's not just with a real life partner, although they do experience it more often with a real life partner. Basically, it increases these articles I was reading, these studies, they were saying porn addiction increases the likelihood of ED with a real life partner and with porn, where you have to seek out more extreme versions of porn. And it's so weird because this is one kind of addiction where if you talk about it, you'll get this huge defensive pushback from people immediately. If you talk about alcoholism, I don't usually see that kind of push defensiveness, but sometimes you do, but not to the same degree. But with porn, it's like people immediately on, in the comments are, this isn't true. And I I watch a lot of porn and I don't have ED. It's like, well, okay, yeah, smoking increases your chances of lung cancer. It doesn't mean you are going to get it. It increases your chances. It's the same thing. It increases your chances of ED, but people don't, I don't know. They get really defensive. Like, not me. You'll
But do you
pry my porn from my cold dead hands.
I was, as you were saying that, people getting defenses, I was thinking you were going to say it's because people don't want to sort of admit that they've even watched porn, but that clearly isn't the issue, is it? They're not bothered about people knowing that they've watched porn, are they?
No, and I've actually seen some of the MGTOW guys, men going their own way. The ones who have basically, in my opinion, they've let the reality of what's been happening in culture and how it's affected women and relationships, they've allowed that to push them into this very dark, um, you know, misogynistic place in some ways where they develop a hatred for all women, and they say things. I've seen these MGTOW guys in my comments when I talk about porn saying things like, "Oh yeah, well my porn will never take custody of my kids and bankrupt me during a divorce." And my porn will and I'm like, wow. Like they're
That's
just like
quite a leap, isn't it? That's
they're done with relationships with women, and they're like, give me my porn any day over women. I'm like, okay. Like, I'm sorry that's
well,
happened to you.
well, this kind of reminds me of the I want to say Japan, but I don't think it is a Japanese thing. I think it's actually an American thing. You know, where they make those very lifelike sex doll things, and they dress them and they talk to them and they have them sat on the settee in the house when they come home
Yes.
from work. And there's definitely something going on where people can't cope with real people that are going to have opinions, that they're not going to want to do something, and having to negotiate around that.
Yeah.
So there's a lot more going on to it than just sex. I think there's all this shit going on. But one thing, I tell you what I've noticed, because in my considerable long life, I've encountered porn maybe once, maybe twice. And one of the things that I've noticed that I find disturbing, but then because I'm older, this might be something that is normal now. I don't know, but it's spitting in women's mouths.
Ugh. Yeah.
And there's another thing that I'm not even going to say, but it involves doing
Yeah.
uh, a
Gross.
sex a sex act and then immediately getting the woman to do oral, but straight
Yeah.
after this particular sex act. And I just thought, well, that didn't even exist when I was young. Nobody would ever even consider that. But I think that is kind of what young people think is normal in sex now. I mean, that just might be my view on it. I don't know whether anybody has encountered this as well. But
I've seen articles about that where I think it was in some feminist magazine, I'm trying to remember it, where they've interviewed young women who have talked about how, yeah, a lot because so many guys are watching porn, they now expect certain things that are not that common, and these things that are more extreme, that they're seeing in extreme porn. And so I do think it has somewhat of an impact. On the other hand, I've also seen stats that Gen Z, Gen Y, that they're having less sex than previous generations. So I also think some of that is what you're talking about, the inability to make connections with real people, and they just
is
prefer to
this like
have their porn.
the incel kind of move? Well, it's not a movement. Is it a movement? I don't know. The involuntary celibate people. Is that those people, do you think?
No, I don't know. No, I think it might just be, I think on average that they're just having less sex, and I think they don't know how to relate to people. But I think part of that is because of online stuff. They're so much more comfortable online. And, we had 2 or 3 years where they're forced to stay in their homes and not even socialize. And you've had, you, I don't
Yeah.
know how great they are in person. I've
Well, speaking of that, the lockdown, I don't know whether it was the same in America, but it was pretty much said that, that includes having sex. If you don't live with that person, you are not allowed to have sex with them. That was said. That was something that was a thing that everybody understood what they meant. People were like, piss off, I'm not doing that. If you had a partner that didn't live with you, the assumption was that you would no longer be having sex with them until the lockdown was over. This was sorry, there's a comment there's a couple of comments actually. The first one is Tabitha saying, between the food diet that young men are eating and what is available online, it's no wonder there's erectile dysfunction.
Yes, Tabitha. And other things that lead to it are lower testosterone rates. We've had a steep decline in testosterone since the 60s. Other things, you're right. What they're eating, stress levels, anxiety levels, depression. There's a whole list, obesity. There's a whole list of health problems that also could impact it. And if you add all these things up and say, are men, on average, young men, experiencing more of all of these different kinds of things than they used to? And the answer is yes, for all of those things, including more porn.
And also, I wonder how many of them actually really would be honest about this, but now a lot of young people are willing to say that they would have sex with a trans person, for example. And I wonder how many of them are being truthful about that and how many would actually do it. And now it's getting to the point where a lot of trans people probably can't have sex because of whatever's been done to them.
Yes.
Or they become people who other people don't necessarily find sexually attractive anymore for whatever reason. I don't know. But then you do get these sort of beta men that say, oh no, I'd go out with a trans person. I don't know whether they're being realistic or whether, I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to say there, actually. It's because I'm winding a ball of wool at the same time, people. I've got the vast majority of my brain is being used on the wool. Hey, you've done better than I have. Wow. If I hold it nearer the camera, mine looks bigger, so it looks like I've done more. Hey, I'm impressed. Keri. Well done.
Thank you.
That wasn't patronizing then, was it? Was it a bit like,
no.
Well done, Keri?
Don't you yarn splain to me, literally, Nittler.
Now, can you squeeze the ball though, or is it like a cricket ball? Yay! Good.
Yeah, yeah. This is fun. I thank you for teaching me this.
Well, I was thinking about it. I've been thinking about it for a while actually, because I know you've got that yarn, and I was thinking she's got yarn and she isn't knitting with it.
I know, and I have boxes also of not just yarn that knitters have sent me in the past few years, but back when I went through this period of knitting 10 years or so ago, maybe longer. And then, like I said, I just made scarves. I tended to prefer the really soft. I didn't know any of the brands. I just went to the store. I wasn't in the online knitting world, but I have all these really soft, chunky yarns, and I have boxes and boxes of that kind of stuff left over because I stopped doing it at some point. And so I want to use all that because that's otherwise I've taken those boxes to 3 different places where I've lived now. It's like, why am I dragging these across the country if I'm not going to use them?
Well, the yarn that you don't necessarily, if it's if it's like acrylic or not, there's anything wrong with acrylic. I'm not being yarn snobby here, but if it's something that you wouldn't necessarily make a garment with, make a blanket with it, and it's easy to make. It's just a lot of knitting. That's all. But it's a Teresa, right? Do you know what this is? Do you know the Murder Knit shawl? Have you heard about this?
I think you guys mentioned it to me on the previous time I was hanging out with some knitters.
Yeah, Tabitha has a shawl recipe, we call it, because it's not a true pattern. It's just something that you follow and you can do what you want with it. And whenever anyone says, oh, I've got this yarn, I don't know what to do with it, the standard answer is make a Murder Knit shawl. So that's why she's saying that to you. So you need to make a seven Murder Knit shawls with your wool in the back room that you've got.
Okay.
And then, I think what you need to learn. Sorry, I am mansplaining now. I think I know better than you do, but I think you need to learn how to knit hats because you love hats,
I
and
love
I
hats.
think there's a whole world of hats out there that you will then have access to that you can't buy off a shelf. You know.
And I crocheted a hat when I was going through that stage 10 years ago. I was also crocheting. I crocheted a hat that's kind of like mohair. It's fuzzy, but I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't follow a pattern, and it's so tight. It's basically like a skull cap. I don't wear it. It's ugly.
Well, I have a story about that. I'm not going to go into it in too much detail, but even as a reasonably decent knitter, I knitted a pattern the other day. Well, I say the other day, it was a couple of months ago now, and it came out tiny. It was the tiniest thing you've ever seen in your life, but it was for that Shark Week challenge. So we only had a week to knit this item, otherwise we
Okay.
had to rip it out. So the moment I realised it was going to be too tight, usually, most knitters would unravel it and start it again. But because I knew that I only had this week, I just carried on with it. So it ended up being, I think it's too small for a baby's head. So I don't know what I'm ever going to do with it.
You're gonna put it on your cat. That's what you're gonna do.
Oh, you don't know my cats? Oof.
Uh, let's see. What can we talk about while rolling these balls of
Ah,
yarn?
well, shall we talk about Israel? We can just touch on it a little bit, can't we? Because we did have an interesting 5-minute chat about that before.
Yeah, it's
Um,
so heavy, but let's talk about it.
mm,
I've well, what I was saying to you before is I think there's a sorting going on, and like kind of like the sorting that we saw during the COVID policies, the COVID lockdowns and stuff, where the right left grip on everything is being loosened a little bit because you're seeing, at least right now, it could change, but um you're seeing that tribalism is not exactly dictating what everyone is saying or what they think about it. And so um what so it's interesting. And I've seen a rise of and there's you can be pro-Palestinian or what have you, anti the government of Israel, and that can be totally separate from being there's the other thing over here, which is actually being hateful towards Jewish people. Those are two separate things. However, I am noticing there's a lot of people in the middle who of those two things who are both, and that's shocking to me.
yeah, you've
And
got people that are kind of hiding it, but then you've also got people that are being
yes,
quite blatant about it. Um, yeah, the ones who are hiding it are the ones that I sort of fear the most, if you like, because
yeah,
because what's happening here, I'll just tell you, I mean, I know it's happening in every country, but one thing that's happening here is we have a very large Jewish population in Manchester compared to other groups, for example. And so many of them are now leaving. They're fleeing the country because they actually feel afraid. But we've had massive demonstrations every weekend for maybe 3 weeks now. And there's going to be another big one at the weekend. And it's like, fine, you demonstrate about Palestine, fine, do that. But what nobody is doing anything about are the people that are chanting, kill the Jews. And it's like when you hear it, it's like, where's what?
what?
What, where are we? This is Manchester in the UK. This isn't, 1930s Berlin. I just don't know where we're going. And somebody today, I don't know which country it was, but I do know that somebody was attacked. A Jewish guy he wasn't in Israel, was attacked and hit over the head with something, and he's since died. So
I
we
saw
are
that.
seeing, I don't know do you remember where it was? Did you
I
see?
don't. I saw that on a stream last night, and I also saw in Beverly Hills, maybe it was at the same thing, maybe not. Anyway, but I know one of the clips I saw last night on a stream was in Beverly Hills, one of these Jewish rallies. They're very small. They're not like the big what we're seeing happen in all these Western countries with these big pro-Palestinian rallies. These are small and they're local, and a lot of them are putting the focus on the any hostages who may still be alive and trying to put the focus there. And so I saw a clip at one of these where you see some people there, Jewish people with Jewish flags, and this guy and girl drive by in a car in Beverly Hills and do a Hail Hitler salute at them out of the car window. crazy. I'm
Wow.
like, what's happening to people? And it's not even, I
Yeah.
don't know if it's like something happening to people or something is being brought out of people. It's like, if I think about it, maybe it's more like an
Well, I've
unmasking.
had a theory for a long time where I feel that, especially with the left, because you're not allowed to be homophobic, you're not allowed to be racist, you're not allowed to be this, you're not allowed to be that. And I'm not saying that you should be, I'm not saying that at all, but because they're so vocal about it, that you're not allowed to criticize a gay person, for example, you're not allowed to criticize a black woman, for example, because then you are racist in their eyes. That they have a lot of hatred and anger that isn't being directed in the right places. I'm not saying
Mm,
it's right to direct it, but they still have those, because we all have biases. I will acknowledge that, even though
mhm.
not in the same way the left would say we do, but we do all have biases. And instead of sort of just saying maybe, oh God, the whatever have done this now, and just getting it off your chest with somebody you live with, for example. You can't do that anymore. So they're bottling all of this anger up that they have. And then the moment there's somebody that they're allowed to express it against,
Unloaded on.
it
Yeah,
comes
yeah,
out. So,
yeah.
the Trump people, that was the first thing where I really noticed the hatred for Trump people. And now it's Jewish people. They clearly are
Yeah.
able to get all of that out of themselves on them. But
And the
the
ones who are both, here's what I noticed them doing. It is a Mott and Bailey thing. They will say, "I'm," well, they'll say something that's about all Jewish people. They'll say
uh,
something like, I've seen people on Twitter in the past few days, and I'm not just talking about leftists, I'm talking about some people on the right with big followings, say things like, all Jewish people are, Jewish people this, Jewish people that, and say things like, Jewish people are all genocidal. It's like, what? And then if anybody in the comments, I look at the comments, if anybody calls them out, then they retreat to the Mott. And they retreat to the Mott. The Bailey is the Jew hatred. The Mott is, I'm just criticizing Israel, man, the government of Israel, man. That's easier to defend, right? They retreat there. It's the same way people on the left, in the feminist part of woke would say something like, all men are sexist. All men are, that to be a feminist, you have to believe that we live in a, a, a patriarchy and that men have an inherent bias and prejudice against women and stuff like that. And then if you criticize that belief, they'll retreat to the Mott and say, feminism is just the belief that women are should be equal, man. It's like, no, that's not what you
uh,
were arguing a second ago.
is that
You retreat to the, yeah.
would you say that was a little bit of gaslighting? Is that what you would say that
It's
was, or is it something else? What would
Mott
that
and
be?
Bailey, Mott and Bailey fallacy. It is a kind of gaslighting, yes, because they are pretending like they're not arguing one thing. They hide behind this easier to defend thing that you don't disagree with. They hide
Right.
behind, so Mott and Bailey comes from, like a castle, and I have to look this up to make sure I'm getting it right, which, yeah. Okay, there's a picture here. I'm gonna send this to you. The Bailey is the part at a castle that's harder to defend. And if it's overrun, the warriors, what have you, they would retreat to the Mott, which is easier to defend. And so people use this, coin this phrase as that type of fallacy that people will do in an argument where they'll put out a very controversial statement or idea that's hard to defend. And if you call
Ah,
them on it, they retreat to a safer, more generally accepted position and pretend like that's what they were pushing the whole time. I'm not saying everyone criticizing the Israeli government is doing this, not at all. Like I said, it's possible to do that, to criticize the Israeli
well,
government and not make statements about all Jewish people. But the ones who are making statements about all Jewish people, then they retreat to, well, I'm just doing what these other guys are doing. I'm just criticizing the government and the war. No, you're not. I saw what you said about Jewish people. That's
do you
disgusting.
do you think this is a bit of a way of finding like-minded people? So if you do have a very extreme view of Jews, for example, and then you say something, and then you're waiting for them to either agree with you or not, just so that you know how far you can then go. Is that what this is
I think
about, you think?
so. And I think a lot of people right now are, you were talking about turning off the news and watching more alternative sources earlier. And one of the things I was thinking about is when people started waking up to this stuff, like in 2016 or 17, or let's just say when I started waking up to it, because a lot of people woke up way before that. But when I started waking up to it, there weren't that many people criticizing the ideology and criticizing the mainstream, unless they were explicitly in mainstream conservative media. But this whole YouTuber world and commentators and independent commentators and stuff wasn't huge. And now it's gotten so big, and there's so many commentators, and now lots of people have shown that you can be successful doing it. And now I'm starting to see these big accounts that I've never even heard of, who have huge followings. I guess I've missed them somehow. Who some of them just seem to be, they relish in this chaos and war that's happening. They almost seem to just be using it to build a fan base and not caring, not having any responsibility over the kinds of things they're saying or retweeting or putting out there.
Well, there's
And
sorry,
it,
go on.
yeah, I find it pretty scary, because now I'm starting to be like, oh, duh, I have to be just as mistrustful of independent commentators as I do of the mainstream news, because there's a lot of
Yeah.
grifters and con artists out there now who are just, it's their primary concern is about building an audience or keeping an audience. And maybe they originally had good intent, some of them, but so many people now I think are just like getting off on this terrible thing that's happening and getting off on using it to grift. And it makes me sick to my stomach, because I don't want us to go
Well,
into a World War III.
there's one particular person who I used to watch a lot of until, I don't know, maybe 4 years ago. And I think you might have actually interviewed him at some point.
Oh.
Um, Benjamin something, is it? Or something Benjamin?
Benjamin Boyce? Owen Benjamin.
No, Owen Benjamin, that's it. And I think I stopped watching him because I could see bits of anti-Semitism seeping into some of the things he was saying. That's my interpretation of it
Mhm.
anyway. And I kind of thought, I feel like you've lost your way a bit now, because he turned against Jordan Peterson at one point, which is fair enough. He can do if he wants to. But I was kind of like thinking, why are you doing this? Because the things that you're saying didn't seem to kind of, it didn't seem to be any substance to it. It was more about him, him being the only person at the time that was willing to criticize Jordan Peterson,
Mm.
but from the more conservative side. But I don't know whether, I mean, is he, did you interview him? I can't
I
remember. Did you?
did, yes,
Yeah.
and actually, he commented on something I said the other night, and
Mm,
we disagree on some things right now, clearly, but I'm gonna make some people mad probably, because,
okay.
I still have a
Go for it.
good feeling about him. I feel
Right.
like I think he's well-intended. I think that, I do. I know people are gonna be like, some people are gonna be like, "Of course he is," and other people are gonna be like, "How could you say that? Look at what he's saying." And it's gonna make everyone
How
mad, I
dare
don't
you
know.
talk to somebody I no longer like? That's the
Right,
thing. You're not allowed to
right.
have any friends. Well,
Look, well,
just
let me just say this, let me
oh,
finish this
sorry, go
about
on.
him. I
Yeah.
just, because oh god, what if this is good? Let me make this clear. I don't agree. I said to him in the public comment thread,
Mm,
"You had me up until you started saying Jews this, Jews that." And I think in his case, it's, for me, a person's intent, it matters a lot. And if
yeah.
I think they have a good heart or not. And I have been wrong in the past. I could be wrong. I know that. I've had some heartbreaking discoveries that I was wrong. However, that matters more to me than anything if I think they're well intentioned. And I am still friends with people who are woke, who say things that I think are completely wrong, and who even sometimes say things I think are completely evil and bigoted or racist, because I think they have a good heart. This isn't all woke people. I'm talking about the
Yeah, just the
very few that I'm still friends with. There's a girl I used to work with. I think she has a very big heart and she's just misguided. And anyway, I guess that's all I'll say about that because I'd probably get myself in trouble with everyone.
Yeah, you'll have no friends left.
But since I didn't, yeah. But I think, yeah, I feel for that dude. That's all.
Right, well, that's interesting. Right. Yeah. But I think you're right in the all thing. Because the thing, my issue with the whole Israel thing is the blaming, especially people who don't even live in Israel. You know, a Jew in New York or a Jew in Manchester city centre has no influence over what is happening in the Middle East at all. None whatsoever. So to blame people, individuals for what a government is doing is completely wrong to me. Now, the Israel as a government thing, we could argue on that point forever, really, as to whether what they're doing is right or wrong or whatever. But the thing about that is that they're just another government like any other government. And if somebody came into America, well, look what happened after 9/11. You know, 9/11 happened, and then, you know, American government and the British, you know, we were part of that as well, went into Iraq and bombed it to hell, didn't we? You know what I mean? So it's governments do that kind of thing, but we
Yes.
didn't kill um Americans on the street because, well, at least we didn't, you know what I mean? You know, because of that, or didn't try and blame every single American or every single British person over something that the government has done. And I mean, I'm not even going to say whether I agree with what Israel's doing or not, because it's irrelevant to me, really,
It's
Pam.
irrelevant because it's none of our business.
Yeah, that's a government. That's something that none of the people can actually do anything about. Your average Israeli citizen can't go and say, Netanyahu, you know, come on, mate, let's stop this. You know, they can't do that.
I think it's yeah, so I'll tell you, I haven't said very much about it because I don't know what I think and I don't have enough knowledge to to offer an opinion. And that's the thing I noticed is a lot of these commentators immediately were suddenly experts on Middle East policy and, suddenly just telling you and stoking this division between you've got to be all this or all that. And so, in the Bible, it talks about being slow to speak and slow to anger. And if I'm not offering an opinion on something, it's because I haven't formed one yet, and I'm not going to just start spitting something out there so that I get a following who's into those things or whatever. It's like, no, I'm gonna say things that I'm confident about
But
that
wasn't
I've
it
thought about.
interesting that the
And
pair of us were kind of, I don't want to say attacked, that's not the right phrase, but we were highlighted
oh,
by the
yeah,
same person, which I
yeah,
thought, who's this? You know, who's this person? I don't even know who this person is, I was
me
thinking.
neither.
Yeah. So basically, this person said, what was it they said? I can't remember the exact
They
wording, but it
tagged
was,
you and me and Konstantin Kisin and Trigonometry Pod, and I feel like somebody else was tagged in there, Douglas Murray or something. I don't know who. Somebody else was tagged in
well,
there.
we're in good company.
Right? And it was like, this person, they tagged me many times, not always with you. It was like
Right.
they went through a flurry of tagging that day. And they tagged us in and they were like basically saying, your silence speaks volumes and you're okay with uh, Palestinians being killed and you're okay with putting all these words and opinions and beliefs in my mouth.
Oh, yeah. And I
And
respected you
yeah,
or something, wasn't it? For people
I
I
used to
respect,
respect
wasn't it?
you
Yeah.
and Constant and Kiss and Trigger. You're so disappointing because you believe XYZ that I've never said I believe. Um, it's so dishonest. I never reward those people by talking about what they want to talk about because I don't want them to think that's the way to get me to comment on something. I always just point out what they're doing, which is putting words and thoughts in my mouth, in my head that I don't hold.
Yeah, you
Um,
definitely dealt with it better than I did, because I actually responded and just sort of said what my position was.
they trick
But
you
re
into, yeah, talk about what I want to talk about.
yeah, I realized when
No.
it was only until I saw what you wrote that I thought, "I've actually been manipulated here." You know,
Yeah.
I realized when I saw your response, because I thought, "Yeah, I should have done something similar," but you learn, don't you? You live
You
and learn.
learn. Yeah, 'cause
Yeah,
I mean, I learned by responding to those kind of people in the past on other things where they're like, I say something like, the example I always give of straw manning is saying, I like dogs, and then them coming to my profile and being like, "Why does Carrie Smith hate cats? It sucks to hate cats. You're a terrible person if you hate cats." And then the way you give them what they want is if you start being like, "But I love cats, and here's pictures of the
Yeah.
cat," and like, no, I'm not talking about cats with you. You're crazy. I never said anything.
Yeah, you're absolutely right on that one. Absolutely.
But about what I will say about this, and this is pretty much all I've said on my podcast about it, is the only thing I know. Because look at Murder Nits, look at Tabitha in the chat. She says this war in the Middle East has been awful as far as picking a side and being vocal about it. I've lost friends that I've gained in the knitting wars over this. I've had to step away online over this. Yes, because right now insanity is reigning online, and and there's this war for us to pick some kind of extreme side. It's a gosh, it's just like the right or left thing. It's an illusion that you have to pick one or the other. Oh, are you a Marxist or a fascist? I'm neither. Thank you. I'm not picking one. And I have the few opinions I do have about it. Um, I'll share those. I don't want to fund a war there, just like I don't want to fund the Ukraine war.
Yeah.
But do I
Well,
think a
why have we
government?
never been
Yeah,
questioned about whose side we're on in the Ukraine war? Why has nobody said, are you supporting the Russians or are you supporting Ukraine? There's obviously certain things are hot topics to these people, aren't they?
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
but
Although I have been accused of supporting Russia. I don't know why. You support Russia because you're not
I
posting the
kind of do.
Ukraine flag.
Well, I don't support Russia, but I'm only kind of I feel a bit sorry for Russia, not as a nation. I feel sorry for Russians, not necessarily the nation, because I do know there's a lovely Russian knitter who has had some really horrible things said to her and been boycotted simply because she's Russian. And it's like, well, that isn't the way to. She doesn't control what Putin decides to do. It's like she's just a person living her
Just a
life.
person.
Yeah, and this is the issue with Israel again. The only thing the issue that I have is I do believe that Israel is the Jewish homeland. I do believe that. I don't believe that anybody should be being killed, but unfortunately, people seem to be forgetting what happened only on in the beginning of October. And
Mm.
the same time that happened, I got if anyone's on Facebook, you'll know what this is. You get a reminder of what you said last year, 2 years ago, 5 years
Oh,
ago. And 5 years ago, I'd posted and said about how Gaza were firing rockets into Israel and just said, but no one's going to talk about that unless Israel fire back. And that was 5 years ago. And it's like, well, this has never
wow.
ended, even though I mean,
Yeah,
it's going on for 70 years. We know this, don't we? The Hamas, again, differentiating Hamas from Palestinians, do want to kill every Jew that exists. And also at the same time, the Israeli government, I think their ideal situation would be to get rid of everybody using Gaza. And that
yeah,
includes Muslims and Christians, because I was recently
yeah.
it was brought to my attention that there is quite a lot of Christian, well, not a lot, but there's a minority of Christians in Gaza who kind of get it from both sides that nobody really acknowledges. They don't even get thought about in this, and they're sort of getting bombed by the Russians. No, maybe not yet, but they're getting it from Israel and they're getting it from Hamas. But I'll tell you what I watched the other day that was really interesting is when they say that it's an open air prison. Well, the question is, who's keeping them in that prison? Because it isn't actually Israel that keeps them in that prison.
Mm.
The only time they're not allowed out of that is if they're trying to go into another Islamic country, such as Egypt in the south, or if they're trying to get into Israel with a bomb or with a weapon. Now, if you're just going to work, because if you have a job, if you're a Palestinian and you work, the chances are your job will be in Israel, not in Gaza. So, and they can work they can do everything that an Israeli can do.
Mm.
But the only people that do have a problem are Jewish Israelis cannot go into Gaza, because if they do, they'll probably end up dead. So it's like, well, is there really a prison there, and who is
Yeah.
actually keeping the gates closed?
I definitely don't buy that, the whole open air prison thing. I didn't know what to think of that at first when I first started hearing that. Again, slow to speak. I'm doing more reading right now than I am talking about this. This is the most I've talked about it. But I
And
don't.
we'll be attacked for this probably. There'll be somebody that
Yeah,
doesn't like what you've said.
yeah, or what I didn't say. Why didn't you say this? Your silence speaks volumes. I didn't know about how. Gosh, what was it? I looked it up. Now I was reading it the other day. Let me just pull this up so I get it right. Um,
Hey, I'm getting better at this tech thing. I'm managing to keep on top of this.
okay. Donna. So I should have I should have prepared to like, oh, we might talk about this and pull this up. It was when they were offered a big the Peel Commission, okay, 1937.
Oh yeah.
I had never read. I mean, I'm still reading. I know so little about this. Again, that's why I'm not like how arrogant to be like, people need to know what I think. Like, what is all these YouTubers? Here's what I think. Like, shut up. Um, I I'm just trying to learn. And so I was reading about this. I didn't know about this, the Peel Commission partition plan of 1937. And that's where they were offered this, this part was going to be Israel, this part was going to be an Arab state,
Yep.
and there was going to be this mandated zone of British control. And if you look at that map and how big the land was that they were being offered, and the fact that they rejected this, and I didn't know that, and it's
Have
everybody
you
wants
got the
to.
map there? Are you able to send it over?
Yes, let me
Yeah,
send it over.
I'll put it on the screen.
Yeah, and the thing about the people who cite, the history and stuff, as I'm finding as I'm reading more, is I think it depends on where do you start the history? Because it's, if you go back this far, it looks like it should be this way. If you go back this far, it looks like it should be this way. And you go back further this way again. And the history is so convoluted about this area. And I thought Douglas Murray made a great point where he said, um, if you're going to talk about, God, did you see this where he recently this week, here,
He's
let me
been
put,
brilliant on this entire situation, actually, Douglas Murray. He's been one of the best voices on it, I think.
he said, if you're going to talk about colonialism and people coming in and settling a place don't have a right to be there, well, then what are you doing in Britain? Like basically he was making a great point about, the hypocrisy of saying, you don't have a right to be to be here. You're a colonialist. And he didn't make the point, but I think he could have made the point. Some of the Jewish friends I have who have asked about this, because again, I'm asking all kinds of people and people who are very anti-Israel as well, because I'm trying to figure out what I think about stuff.
Mm.
Some of the Jewish people I've talked to point out, well, history didn't start in 1948. You go back further. This is the land of, if you want to talk about colonialism and who had original claim to the land, Jewish people did. That's what they say. So it's like you've got these two. How far do you go back with history? How many of these
Well, I
claims
think
that people are
the
making?
first thing where you would have to start, I think, is to acknowledge that after the Second World War, that isn't why Israel was formed. It was not formed because of what happened in the Second World War. It happened after, and it might have been the final push to do it, but it wasn't, we need to give them a homeland because of the Nazis and gassing Jews. That is not what happened. They were already talking about this, probably 100 years prior to that. It's been Israel was a very long time. The nation as we know it now was a long time in the making, wasn't it? But the thing you mentioned about the two-state solution, in effect, wasn't it, about having the Arab land and the Jewish land, is just how every single time, no matter what has been suggested, the Hamas will say now, but there were people before that as well, have refused. They're not interested because it's not actually about land for them. They don't care about land. It's
Yeah.
about who is living on that land. And part of the issue that nobody ever mentions is it's a religious thing. In the Quran, says that you can't allow Jewish people to live. Kill them wherever you find them. That is a line in the Quran. And yeah, there are things just as equally as horrible in the Bible, and in the Torah. However, it's whether people are acting on that now or not. And sadly, people do still act on the Quran at the moment for whatever reason. But is there anything on this page that you wanted to show in particular?
Well, the map there, and I also found a better version of the map. But look, here on this version of the map, the part that's circled in red would have been the promised Jewish state, and the little tiny part circled in black would have been under British control, and all of the rest of that would have been the Arab state.
Wow! OMG! That is so. Israel would have been tiny.
And
The
Israel,
Jewish Israel would have been
right?
tiny.
The Jewish state, and they accepted this, but the Arabs did not. And
so at the moment, am I right in thinking that? So this is the river, as they chant, isn't it? So here, where that line goes up, somewhere here, and then it comes down here. Gaza's here, isn't it? In this area, and
yes.
then this bit is Israel as well. Is that correct? Is it all
Today,
of that?
let me see if I can find a modern one so we get this right. And open up this other link I just sent you.
Okay. Yeah.
Because this one that I just sent you makes it more clear what was offered at that time, and then we can just put them. Yes, you were right.
Oh, what's it called? The next link.
Oh, it's a Twitter link. Did
I don't know whether it's going to let me do it. Let me try it again. Right, I've got it on my screen. Will I be able to do it? Give me a second. Yeah, this is it. Sorry, it's me being technically challenged. Okay. There we go. So is that current? Oh no, that's 1937. So the green would have been Arab.
Yes.
Wow. And so was it the Arabs that refused? It was, wasn't it? Or whoever was representing them at the time. Is that what happened?
They refused, yes. From and we can read about here. If you go back to that first link I sent you, the Peel Commission. So the Peel Commission was formerly known as the Palestine Royal Commission. It was a British Royal Commission of Inquiry headed by Lord Peel, appointed in 1936 to investigate the causes of unrest in Mandatory Palestine, which was administered by Great Britain following a 6-month-long Arab general strike. So in 1937, the commission published a report for the first time stated that the League of Nations mandate had become unworkable and recommended partition. The British cabinet endorsed the partition plan in principle, but requested more information. Following the publication in 1938, the Woodhead Commission was appointed to examine it in detail and recommend an actual partition plan. The Arabs opposed the partition plan and condemned it unanimously. The Arab Higher Committee opposed the idea of a Jewish state and called for an independent state of Palestine with protection of all legitimate Jewish and other minority rights and safeguarding reasonable British interests. They also demanded cessation of all Jewish immigration and land purchases. They argued that the creation of a Jewish state and lack of an independent Palestine was a betrayal of the word given by Britain. The Zionist leadership was bitterly divided over the plan. In a resolution adopted at the 1937 Zionist Congress, the delegates rejected the specific partition plan, yet the principle of partition is generally thought to have been accepted or not rejected outright by any major faction. The delegates empowered the leadership to pursue further negotiations. The Jewish Agency Council later attached a request that a conference be convened to explore a peaceful settlement in terms of an undivided Palestine. According to Benny Morris, such and such saw it as a stepping stone to some further expansion and the eventual takeover of the whole Palestine. So even this, it's like everything I read, it just requires more reading. And I guess the most I can say about everything that's happening right now is I'm more concerned at at the moment with the effects that this is gonna have beyond just what's happening in Israel and Palestine. I'm very concerned with the Western response to all of this, to the ways in which we're being manipulated, divided, the ways in which we're, you know, there are the BLM movement and all these other leftist movements are seizing upon this and using it to push the same old ideology about destroying the West. Like it's really crazy times. And I'm worried about a world war with nuclear powers. Like, you know,
Well, this is I mean, I don't know how old, well, you probably weren't even born, but I remember when we grew up in the 70s and 80s, we were always expecting a nuclear war. We literally grew up
mhm,
with that. We were told what to do, ridiculous things like get under your desk at school. It's like, well, that's going to help you in a nuclear war, isn't it? But
yeah,
yeah, so although I can see people being worried about that, I kind of personally, I just think, oh, here we go again. That's the first thing I think. I just think, oh, here we go again. We're going to all be blown up in a nuclear war or whatever. But the thing that I'm noticing is weird things like in London and in the UK, you'll have thousands and thousands of pro-Palestinian supporters, with some of whom will have Al Qaeda or Hamas, the black flag, with the white writing on, which is actually prescribed in this country. You're not allowed to have that. But the police won't arrest them. But the people they are arresting are people that have got England flags.
the British flag. I
Yeah,
saw that.
yeah. And part of it is and this is where I'm worried, and it's kind of a slightly different angle. But and I think the reason they're doing it, I don't think it's anything against the police as such, but I just think they can't arrest thousands of people, but they can arrest the one person that isn't doing what the others are doing. And that doesn't mean that it's okay, because I think it's wrong. But rather than making it clear that it isn't okay to attack this person with the English flag or kill them or whatever it was they want to do, they'll arrest him and take him away for his own safety, which is completely topsy-turvy. And
Yeah.
what really worries me as well is that the thing that happened in Israel, where they were going door to door and getting people and doing the awful things that they did, as soon as I heard about that, the first thing I thought was, that is what they're going to do here in this
Yeah.
country. Because I don't know how many Americans watching now have actually been to the UK, but depending on where you go, you don't know what country you're in. And that is, I'm not saying that in any kind of racist way. It's just that we have taken so many migrants from the Middle East that we are on the verge, certain areas are on the verge of becoming Middle Eastern enclaves. Is that the right word? I don't know what the word is for it.
Y
And I do think that we kind of know what's going to happen. And then you've got idiots like the Queers for Palestine.
yes.
And you just think, oh, please, please learn something. They're not going to thank you when the time comes. You're not going to get a pass when the time comes. And it worries me more what's going to happen in our countries, which is a selfish thing. I know it's selfish, because I kind of feel, oh, here we go again with Israel. That it's been going on so often. There's always a drama. There's always war. There's always death. But we've kind of been a little bit untouched by, apart from terrorist acts. Fine, well, not fine, but you get the point. But I think we're actually now going to see some really horrible things in countries that aren't connected. And I think Jewish people are going to be the first targets. And what I think is going to happen, I think the police are going to stand by while Jewish people are beaten, stripped, humiliated, exactly like they were in Germany back in the day, because there's going to be too many to actually
Do
arrest.
anything. That's the video I saw. I think it was Billboard Chris's video, or somebody shared a video, in the UK, and it was them, arresting or talking to some British people who had the British flag and basically telling them they couldn't fly their flags there, and they said, "Well, why aren't you doing anything about all of their flags and all of the Hamas flags and stuff?" And on the camera, the police there in the UK said, "Well, there's too many of them,
Yeah.
so we're gonna come for you."
So basically,
Like,
our government has allowed so many millions of people to come into this country that do not share our values. Now, I don't know how realistic it is to expect everyone who comes to live in a country to share your values, but you'd kind of hope that a few would, but they don't. They
Yeah.
don't share our values. They have the same values as many in the Middle East do. The fact that they did a survey about 10 years ago, and they were asking a lot of these migrants that had come here what their views on executing gay people was. And I think it was 90% of them at the time agreed that being gay should be something that you were executed for. Well, that doesn't sort of fit in with our values as a Western nation. And then what they do is they sort of turn that on its head and say, oh, the UK is now a homophobic country. And it's like, well, no. Most of British people really do not give a flying F what people do in their own bedroom. You know what I mean? They just don't care.
Yeah.
But there is a group that do. And, I don't know what I'm trying to say here, but it does worry me.
It's very worrying. I mean, we weren't in the UK, but my husband and I were in Europe, and there are parts of Germany like that where it's entirely the culture's been displaced entirely by another culture. And that's not a melting pot. That's not
Yeah,
what a melting pot is. Melting pot means that you've got a culture assimilating to the overall culture, but bringing some of their own culture with them, but not
yeah.
taking, not
Well, I think the
supplanting, but
world
replacing.
Yeah, I think the Western world looked at America in the older days, the 30s and 40s and 50s, and thought, oh, that's great, because people tended to become American. They tended to swear allegiance to the new country and they wanted to be American. They didn't suddenly say, oh, I'm still Brazilian, but I'm living in
Mm,
America. You know what I mean? It was really big deal that they were American. Whereas now here, you have people that are swearing allegiance on the Quran. Well, that shouldn't be happening. It's like, well, no, that isn't British. That isn't, and then they're trying to sort of gaslight us into thinking that we're now a multi-faith country. Well, no, we're actually a Christian country. We've always
mhm,
been a Christian country. But at a certain point, there will be a tipping point when it's going to be more atheists and more Islamic beliefs.
mm.
And then what are we then? Are we then an Islamic country? And then the moment that happens, holy crap, there's going to be some bad things happen. Hopefully not in my lifetime, but God, we
It's
always
gonna
go
be
dark,
bad.
don't we?
Why,
Anyway,
you and I? Why do we
how's your
always get
ball of
dark?
wool? How's your ball of wool? Let's cheer things up. Have you done it? Have you finished?
My ball of wool is huge.
Yay!
Look at that.
It worked.
It's like half the size of this head.
Mine's not so big, but then again, I've got a massive head, so.
I love it.
So
Thank you, Chicken Lady Fiber Arts. This is the
yeah,
deprogrammed color. If you want to get it, blue on blue on
yeah,
blue. I love it.
yeah. It's a really nice, and it's her yarn is lovely. You've got what was the make of yours again? Not the make, but the
This
mine's a
one is
DK sock. Yours
it.
is
It doesn't say. It says Rhode Island red. It's 196 yards, 115 grams,
right.
6 to
Rhode
9
Island
needles.
red. I don't know. I can't remember. I know Liz Clothier's in the chat, or she was earlier. She knows all of her yarns, Lynn's yarns. There's something. It's an American yarn, I believe, because I think all of Chicken Lady's yarns are American, whereas a lot of yarn dyers use British yarns,
Made in the USA.
which is why I like her yarn because to me it's different. Do you know what I mean? Whereas you guys who are American probably buy it because you want to support American stuff. I want to buy it because I just think, oh yeah, it's something that I can't get here. Yeah. So Liz said it's a worsted weight. Which does that mean anything to you?
No,
Worsted.
it's
It's
a.
just it's a thicker yarn than mine because mine's a DK. So yours, can't figure out what yours will be thicker than mine is.
Is it like a sausage bratwurst? I'm kidding.
Right, so now what
Sausage
are you
weight.
gonna knit? Are you gonna just save it for a while before you know, or
No, I think I will try a shawl. I have 2 of these. Is that enough?
this is so apt considering we're not allowing porn anymore. If you because that's what people say when you don't get to
Yeah,
what.
yeah. I'm not sure. If not enough for a shawl, do a hat.
In
It seems
worsted,
daunting.
it's definitely enough for a hat, but you've got two,
Okay.
haven't you? You've
Yeah.
got two, so you've definitely got enough for a hat and probably some mitts or mittens, and you've probably got enough for a cowl, but you probably don't have enough for a murder knit shawl. However, you can add to a murder knit shawl. You wouldn't even need to stick to the same color. You would just need to try and stick to the same weight of yarn.
Okay.
And as long as it's similar-ish, so you could go with any other color that you like. Tabitha, you're here. You can contradict me if you think I'm wrong, but I don't think 2 worsted weight would be enough for your shawl, would it? So, but definitely enough for a hat and some mitts.
Hat and mitts. Okay. That seems ambitious, so I think maybe I'll try that for a
Oh,
Christmas present
honestly, yeah,
for
they're
someone.
well. If you, we need to dedicate some time because I will, and I know other people in the chat would. We'll help you with it. We can
I
talk
would
you through
love that.
because
I
it's
wanna and I owe, Anne a message about being, politically incorrect knitters again, so maybe I could bring it there.
Liz says there's plenty for a murder knit shawl, right? I'm surprised. I didn't think there'd be enough with worsted weight, 2 worsted weight, but I suppose it depends how big you're expecting it to be. Adam's here. I'm doing a live with Adam and Pirate Tomsky and Annie in a few weeks, and we're
What?
doing like a Brit show, so it's Brits
How
only. I'm afraid.
cool.
So I'm still having a chat with Pirate because we're going to do a couple of things that I think are going to be quite. Obviously, if you're American and you watch, be prepared to be offended because we're probably going to be winding you up a little bit.
Winding you up. That's also a Southern expression. We
Oh,
got
is
it from
it?
you guys, clearly, yeah.
Do
Yeah.
you not say it where you are then? Winding people up.
No, we do. It's an old Southern expression here. There's a song called, oh gosh, who does that? It's an old country song. Fair and Young, he's got a song called "Wind Me Up," but
Ah,
it's wine, he changes it to wine. Get it? 'Cause he's
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. Tabitha says that I'm always wrong. She loves it when I'm wrong. She says, I've done a 1 skein bulky weight for a murder knit shawl. Yeah, but Tabitha,
Oh,
you're the loosest knitter in the world. You can get away with it.
who are you calling loose?
Tabitha, she's loose and she admits it. She knows she is. Right. Well, we're kind of at the 2 hour 15 point, I think. So, and we've kind of exhausted ourselves a little bit, haven't we? And we did go
Yeah.
to a dark place as usual, but I think we've crawled out of that. I think we've survived.
I've
Um,
did I read this to you already?
oh, what? No, I don't know. What is it?
We can end on this note. I
Oh,
can't
go
remember
on. Yeah.
what show I brought this to because this is a fun note. I know you're about to close out. I just wanna say, this
Yeah.
old antique shop near me has these old super mags from the '70s and '80s, and this one, has Miss Piggy and Burt Reynolds on the cover. And these were $1 back then, and inside, it's a whole, like, feature article about Miss Piggy, and, uh, it it smells like an antique
Miss
shop.
Piggy.
It smells like yeah. Smells like a shop full of old things, and they write it I just love it because they write it as if she's a real person, and it's just this totally, handsome men adore her. Ever since the showbiz began, the blue-eyed blondes have won men's hearts. Every period has had its golden girls, but the late 1970s boasts more blonde beauties than ever before. There are Cheryl Ladd, Suzanne Summers, Farrah, but most of all, there is Miss Piggy. And and then it goes on about beautiful women envy her, and it's just so cute. I love this magazine, and there's a spread on, Burt Reynolds in here too. Um, anyway, that's something
well,
fun and silly that's not
well,
heavy.
I saw something the other day where they were talking about actors and they were saying about great actors that have been in really bad films. And apparently, the important thing is that even if it's a bad film, that you're not the bad actor in the bad film. So even if it's shit, you're supposed to act your socks off. And they
Yeah.
talked about, although I don't think this is a bad film, I think it's a great film. They talked about the Muppets Christmas Carol, and it's oh, my name's Michael Caine, isn't it? And they were saying that in the scenes with Michael Caine, he is earnest. Do you know what I mean? He is really acting
Yes.
to those puppets and Miss Piggy.
Yes. Oh, well, he that reminds me of in here, they have a picture of her, Miss Piggy with Charles Grodin, and, was Charles Grodin? Was that who it was? And he was so serious about it as well. Like, he was one of her admirers, and he just acted his socks off with her, like he was in love with her. It's so funny. It's just, I mean, I
Well,
guess
you
maybe
wouldn't
you have to
have
be a
you
certain
seen the
age.
old shows? Because you'd be far too young, wouldn't you, to have
No,
seen the old
I
70s
saw
shows?
the old movies and stuff. Yeah, I was
Did you see the
well,
TV series, though? Because there was a TV
no,
series.
I've only seen clips of the TV show.
I
Yeah.
used to love that because it was sort of mid to late 70s, I'd say, and it was on every Saturday here. And the season, obviously only the season, and I absolutely loved it. And my favorite clip in it was Pigs in Space. I don't know if you know about
Oh, I've seen
Pigs
that. Yes.
in Space.
Yes. Yes.
And every week they had a different guest on, and they always took it really seriously. It
Yeah,
was
they
really
played
good.
along. I
Yeah,
love
it was
it.
such a good show. But,
Aw, well,
uh,
thank you for having me on,
well, thank you
Neil.
for coming
It
on.
was fun to hang out
And
with you.
you now have a ball of wool, so that's good. Something
I
productive.
do I love Blocked Magazine. I see you have some new people in your chat, and I'll just say, if you're a knitter and crocheter, like you said you are, you have found a great community of people here with Neil and Blocked Magazine. So,
It's not just me as
well,
well. There's also politically incorrect knitters, knit night girls.
mhm.
I need to say a few other people as well.
Yes.
Otherwise, it sounds like it's all about me. Well, it is all about me, but that's me mansplaining.
Man.
So, where can people find you, Keri? I mean, everybody
Um,
knows where you are on the internet, but we
you
kind of have
you
to do
can
that.
find me at Deprogrammed with Keri Smith here on YouTube, or um, anywhere you find podcasts. Although I have a backlog there, I need to update the audio files. So apologies, anyone who's like, "Yeah, you haven't updated in a year." Ah, but on YouTube, you can currently find all the episodes. And yeah, it's been really great hanging out with you guys. Goodbye, Cinco. Hey,
So,
Adam.
Keri Smith of Deprogrammed, you have been blocked.